Good even fall to one and all. Happy New Year 2024, everybody. Oh, yeah. Happy New Year. This is your interlocutor, Warp Speed. And I hope you and everyone else that's around you has started off the year 2024 with an excellent first week or so. I myself just want to invite everybody here to the very first live of this current year 2024, the year of our Lord. Now, for all those who have never listened to the Homie Ricky podcast, Homie Ricky podcast is a podcast dedicated to discussing all things boxing. We discuss the news of the day. We discuss how the fighters are moving. We discuss the fights that have took place during the week, the weekend, so forth and so on. And we try to do so in an unbiased fashion because we really don't care who wins for the most part, as long as they win convincingly and the fight is violent and exciting. So if you are an exciting fighter that goes out there to perform and to entertain, you will get our respect. That's really where the homie Ricky and I we really agree on things, right? That the sport of boxing behooves everybody when it is exciting and when the boxers care not only about their career but about entertaining those that go and spend the hard money to watch them fight. Now, with that being said, I hope that that is made clear for everybody that is new here. You can expect that we will report the news of the day and everything that is going on in the sport of boxing in a fashion that is unbiased and as honest as possible, trying to eliminate any of our own personal opinions when reporting. Now, once we get past the reporting part, then we can get into the more personal, more opinionated side of things. But for the most part, that is what you can expect from this your podcast. My name is Warp Speed. I'm a diehard fan of this violent organized sport called boxing. I've been watching the sport for, I would say, over 35 years. It's one of the first memories of mine, watching men pummel each other as we gathered about, and these big ranches over here in northern central California. We would gather in these ranches where people had a parabolic antennas, basically the type of antennas that you point to the sky to look for UFOs. But these people were basically getting reception for channels from around the world in order so that they can host boxing events. And then they would invite us to their home. They charge us a few bucks. They would sell us food and drink. And we were kids. And all of our elders would be clamoring, hooting as men pummeled each other, again, for our entertainment. And I fell in love with that. I fell in love with the communal spirit of men and women, family and children gathering about in order to watch a man fight another man to see who was the bravest, the toughest, the more resilient, the one who had the survivor's take. It was incredible. I fell in love with that. And I've remained in love with that aspect of the sport throughout my years. And in a few weeks, ladies and gentlemen, beloved listeners, I will be turning 45 years of age. So I reckon if when I say 35 years watching the sport, I guess I would say that that'd be around 10 years of age when I first started watching boxing. But in fact, that must be actually closer to 40 because I was a very small tyke when these things were affecting my life in this way, leading to this fanatic of the sport that now has the nerve, I guess you can say, the audacity to come on this broadcast live and somehow hope that my opinion is valid enough to keep you entertained and educated. It really is an audacity, a nerve that both the homie Ricky, I, and sometimes one of our other occasional commentators, Drew, uh, take. We display an audacity when we decide to face the world and put our words and opinions out there in the sake that you will learn something from it or take something of value from that. It is an audacity. And because it is a nerve to think that my opinion matters, I actually respect your time and I try to make it count. I try to bring news that are deserving of your time and hoping that maybe you all can chime in, give your rebuttals, retorts, your words of agreement, and so forth and so on. So, with that being said, that is a long introduction for our listeners. I reckon 6 minutes of your time putting your ear on explaining what the format of the show is. But I figured 2024 is a new year and let's start fresh. 2024. Wow. What can we say, right? It started with a bang. We all know about this whole, you know, thing going on with Cat Williams, the comedian, going on the Shay Shay show and just, you know, putting rugs on everybody and just exposing all of these people uh, for what they are. Apparently, there's a lot of people out there in this world that are bad, conniving, deceitful. Is that a surprise to you? It sure isn't a surprise to me. There are bad people everywhere, but there are also very good people. But I just wanted to address that fact right there that Cat Williams came on to the start of the year on this YouTube channel, uh, the Shay Shay Show. I guess it's handled by a former NFL player, a very charismatic guy, Shay Shay Shannon, who I think he used to come out with another show with a fella, Shannon and Bayless or something like that. I don't know, some white guy. It was a sports show. I think they talked about football and all kinds of stuff. I never really watched them, but I guess they severed ways, and Shannon ended up starting his own YouTube channel. And long story short, it's been around for a few years, I reckon. And then they interviewed Cat Williams, one of the popular comedians of the day. It's come on in a lot of movies, Friday, Friday After Next, so forth and so on. And anyways, there's a lot of commotion going on with some of the things that he revealed about entertainment, in particular the Hollywood, the world of Hollywood, and the involvement of the black community in it. And for the most part, ladies and gentlemen, beloved listeners, all I have to say is that it's what we call in Spanish chisme, which is basically gossip. Cat Williams, all he did is expose a lot of the actors in Hollywood as being conniving and treacherous and just very bad people. Now, we've heard these rumors before, so that's not necessarily the big deal. What I took as the big deal for what Cat Williams was revealing is that the power of truth is something that can change lives. Now, everybody's talking about Cat Williams, about how he exposed all these things and stuff like that. Again, I just think it's all gossip. None of these things are important. They don't change the world for the better. All it is just exposure about things that we already expected. We didn't think that any of these people really were that great. Or maybe you did. And maybe that's the reason why you guys are taking it as this grand revelation that Hollywood and all these people that influence us in the form of televised entertainment, that they really are that bad. Maybe you did think highly of these people. But Cat Williams, all he did was reveal the power of truth, which is one. When you speak truth and truth to power, first you leave everybody astounded and with their mouth agape because people aren't used to speaking truth. And I understand why people don't speak truth, right? For the most part, not speaking truth is not the same thing as lying. All it is not being completely forthcoming, right? Some people may be reluctant in speaking absolute truths for the niceties of it all and whatnot. And sometimes it's a defense mechanism. Some people don't like to speak truth or are reluctant to speak anything completely semblant of fact and truth because maybe they don't want to expose themselves to harm. Okay, that's fine. When Cat Williams decided to speak truth, he also exposed himself to the same kind of revelation working against him. And he knew what it was coming. He knew it was coming when you decided to expose others. You knew that they were going to expose you. But he figured the audacity, the nerve to speak truth was more important than the protection of being less than completely truthful. So, in that sense, that vulnerability is commendable. Cat Williams exposed others, and in doing so, exposed himself to retort and rebuttal and exposure and like. So, in that sense, it is brave. And the other thing is, when he decided to speak truth, and a lot of people are now coming forth and verifying and providing veracity to his allegations, is that now people feel empowered to speak truth. Now you're probably thinking to yourself, what does this have to do with the sport of boxing? Well, I'm just going to bring it full circle. Cat Williams exposed a lot of comedians, a lot of actors as fakers, as thieves, ne'er do wells that we should not idolize. And similarly, we should also look at the sport of boxing and its fighters and understand that yes, these men and women are brave warriors that expose themselves to harm, all for our entertainment and perhaps a couple of greenbacks. But for the most part, ladies and gentlemen, these fighters are men and women, and they are human and therefore fragile and imperfect and can be treacherous and can be deceitful and can be conniving. Not all of them are. And I'm not saying any of them are even like that. But what I'm trying to say is we should not idolize these fighters. We should respect them, but we should not idolize these fighters. And this is where I say the reason why the homie Ricky and I try to keep things unbiased and neutral, and we don't try to favor a fighter due to their nationality, their creed, their race, or their color, is because we all know we are human and therefore we are imperfect and we should only strive for perfection. None of these fighters, none of these individuals that a lot of us look up to are perfect. And thus, we should be able to speak truth when we address these fighters. I am unbiased because I don't see these fighters as my personal heroes. I respect them because they do what I can't do, because they do it for my entertainment. They subject themselves and perpetuate violence upon themselves solely so that I can get a couple of heartbeats into my heart of excitement. I hope that makes sense. That's a long introduction. 15 minutes of putting your ear on absolutely nothing important, but I just felt I needed to say that in order so that you can better understand how the homie Ricky, Drew, and myself, we try and keep it honest, similar to Cat Williams, and we hope we don't expose ourselves to the same kind of critique because we are being completely honest without necessarily doing so to offend. Let us begin. 2024, baby. Yeah. This year, let's make it count, ladies and gentlemen. How about that? Let's make it count. I encourage any of our listeners tonight to please reveal what their New Year's resolutions, if any, they have. And I hope you have thought about what changes you'd like to employ in this year 2024, to make your life even more worthwhile, to set out goals for yourself so that you can work hard to achieve them. And I hope that you can come on here and send me a chat and tell me what you plan on working on this year, so that this way I can document it and remind you every time you come on here what you've done towards that goal. And I'm going to start off by telling you what my goals are for this year, 2024. I plan on being more productive when it comes to this boxing work, this boxing reportage, if you would, because I love doing this. I love talking everything boxing. And the only reason we really do this is not really because we love the sound of our voice or we just want to continue talking our opinions. No, we do so because we want to interact and engage you all in order to learn more about how to best view this sport of ours. Because I've been set in my ways of what I think is the best way to proceed with the sport. I also like to have others challenge me and demonstrate to me what they want out of the sport. Sometimes they may be in agreement with my opinions or the homie Ricky Sir Drew, and sometimes they can be in complete disagreement. Nonetheless, we are here to engage you all in order to learn how to be better fans and better supporters of this sport that some people think is a dying sport, yet others believe it's just reaching a golden age. So this year I have set a couple of goals. One of those is to repair and completely rebuild two low-rider cars this year. I'm very close to filling one, so that's why I figured that I can do two on my own this year. One of them is a complete rust bucket, so I have a lot of work to do. So I should really be able to just set the task of finishing one car this year from the top to bottom. Total restoration just by one man. But because I know that one is almost to the point of completion, I figured that I can add two. And secondly, another goal of mine, and the only reason I mentioned lowrider cars is because, well, I work on lowrider cars as a hobby and as a passion. I do have 9 to 5, so I can't restore cars every single moment of my life. But I do that as a passion and a hobby. A second resolution is to drink enough water throughout the day so that my urine comes out clean. Now you're probably thinking, what? That's crazy. Well, you don't drink water? Well, in fact, I really don't drink enough water. I can go on a whole day and just have drunk a mug of coffee, and I could go mountain biking and I could work all day, and the day could be completely sunny, the sun glaring and blazing, and I still won't drink water because I just don't have a thirst. But because of that, sometimes when I go and urinate, my urine comes out orange like the color of a pumpkin skin. So I set out to try to maintain myself better hydrated to the point that I would drink water up until my urine comes out clear. So I think those two resolutions are realistic ones. So there is mine. You can hold me to account next time you chat with me. But I hope that I can get you folks to you know tell me what your resolutions are. Okay, enough with the whole uh, clear pee and whatnot. Let's talk boxing. This past weekend, Saturday, Golden Boy presented the very first offering of organized pugilism for this current year, 2024, the year of our Lord. This was the almost 2 year return after a lengthy hiatus of Texan Virgil Ortiz Jr., a Golden Boy undefeated fighter with a knockout streak who has been out of the sport for a few years now due to the fact that he suffered from something called rhabdomyolysis, which is basically some kind of condition that affects kidneys, if I'm not mistaken. Uh, and it has to do a lot with dehydration, muscle building, and just applying a lot of stress to your musculature, to the point that your body starts eating up your own flesh. And you start urinating blood and all kinds of stuff. It's a very delicate condition. He suffered it on two occasions. It led to the postponement of a very highly sought out fight between the Mantis Staniotis, uh, who ended up having a fight of the year contender almost 3 years now, versus Butaev. And Virgil Ortiz was to fight that guy for a shot at one of Terence Crawford's belt, for the IBF, if I'm not mistaken. And then he suffered from this horrible medical condition. He was to return about 8 months later from the scheduled original fight date. He suffered from the same condition. There was another postponement. Long story short, he came back to the sport of boxing, having originally fought at 147 welterweight. And because he no longer wanted to apply that kind of stress on his body, when he reacquainted himself with his longtime trainer, uh, Robert Garcia, Robert Garcia said, "Okay, we got to come back, but you have to have a warm up." And with that being said, I want you to fight at 160. I want you to take it easy. I just want you to warm up. I want to see where you're at. Now, there was talk about Virgil Ortiz trying to make 154. Uh, in order to just naturally go up in weight without having to hop two divisions up. And he ended up going to 154, and there was some reports saying that he was going to fight this other fighter who was also making his very first move up to 154 after historically fighting at 147 like Virgil Ortiz. And last minute changes ended up leading to one fighter uh, fighting at 154 because he came in weighing at 152, and Virgil Ortiz coming in weighing at middleweight at 160 because he ended up weighing 156, just shy of 157. Now, not too sure what happened there, but we do call that weight bullyism. If you use a weight advantage for yourself and a disadvantage for your nemesis, we believe that is a tactic of weight bullyism. It is understandable one because we do understand it was probably very hard and trying for Virgil Ortiz Jr. to make weight under 154 after being out of the sport for 2 years. Nonetheless, I do have the receipts and the reports that state he intended to fight at 154. And in fact, the fighter that he met with, Frederick Lawson, he did meet that weight uh, requisite when it came in at 152.4 or something to that effect. Now, long story short, whatever, they decided to fight. Both of them were moving up in weight, and one was a veteran. Virgil Ortiz was a much fresher fighter. And then one of the most incredible things happened this year, just to start off the year, guys. You must understand one thing. This past weekend, Golden Boy Promotions boxing event was chock full of so many intriguing things. For one, we had Ismael Barroso, the elder fighter who's around 40, 42 years of age, who was legitimately beating Rolly Romero when all of a sudden Tony Weeks stopped this fight after Rolly Romero threw a flurry of punches, of which none of them landed, and they stopped the fight on Ismael Romero when he had legitimately beaten Rolly Romero for about 8.5 rounds straight. This was Tony Weeks at the working as the third man in the ring, and he stopped this fight prematurely. In fact, more than prematurely. There should never have been a stoppage because there was never any harm that was perpetuated on Ismael Barroso. Upon reviewing the video, you see that Rolly Romero threw about 6, 7 punches, of which none of them landed. Most of them were parried and blocked or just completely avoided. And somehow, Tony Weeks felt the need to stop Ismael Barroso from fighting. And that led to Rolly Romero becoming a 140 fighter once they had stripped Josh Taylor of 3 of his 4 belts, right? And I found out to be completely ludicrous that Tony Weeks, a referee that's been in the sport for around maybe 3 decades now, that he would make such a bad call and stop a fight at the highest of stakes. Nonetheless, that's what happened. And Ismael Barroso was fighting this past weekend against a fighter who should have had the opportunity to fight Rolly Romero for that 140 belt, which was British O'Hara Davies, a fighter who was next in line to fight against Rolly Romero. He was mandated to do so. Rolly Romero ended up declaring himself an injured fighter. They gave him an extension so that he could provide the substantiation to indicate what he was injured of. I believe, even though it was never reported, that obviously Rolly Romero gave some evidence of some type of injury because afterwards they never stripped him of that belt, and he ended up passing on the opportunity to defend against O'Hara Davies. Now, O'Hara Davies was to wait up until May, if I'm not mistaken, March or May of, because that's when they had provided the extension for Rolly Romero to negotiate the fight. Now, O'Hara Davies was most recently signed by Golden Boy Promotion, along with Jose Ramirez from Fresno, California, and Arnold Barbosa from South Del Monte, California. A lot of these incredible 140 fighters. And of course, O'Hara Davies is one of those. He basically is setting up all of these fighters in order to do a round robin where all of these fighters that are mostly undefeated or barely have a loss under their belt are going to be fighting to see who comes out on top. An incredible concept, an incredible idea. And Golden Boy was going to facilitate that because he picked up all of these fighters. Now, he picked up O'Hara Davies because he knew he had an opportunity to fight Rolly Romero for the 140 belt. And because Rolly Romero is one of the most limited fighters out there, along with Deontay Wilder and Ryan Garcia, he figured O'Hara Davies, who's only lost to Jack El Gato Caterral, and to former undisputed 140-pound fighter Josh Taylor, he figured he has the skills and the experience to beat Rolly Romero convincingly, become a champion, and then set him up with his cash cow, which is Ryan Garcia. Very great move by Golden Boy in signing this fighter. But because they extended the sanctioning body extended Rolly Romero's layoff due to medical necessity, what O'Hara Davies and Golden Boy decided to do is that they decided that they were going to up and up the stakes by fighting Ismael Barroso, the man who should have, if the fight had continued, become the champion at 140 after having beaten Rolly Romero. Of course, this was going to be an intriguing fight because O'Hara Davis was supposed to beat the 40-some-year-old Ismael Barroso. He was now going to look much better having beaten that guy who beat Rolly Romero. And since he was already the guy in line to fight Rolly Romero for his belt, then that would have been a fight with much significance and just greater magnitude. And then, of course, he could set up O'Hara Davis against Ryan Garcia, who's now at 140. In fact, he's closer to 147 because last time he fought at 143.7 against Oscar Duarte. But nonetheless, I'm sure that he could come down to 140 to fight O'Hara Davies. And if he doesn't want to take that fight, well, guess what? They had Arnold Barbosa, undefeated fighter, a fighter who about 3 years ago he fought in a Fight of the Year contender where he almost killed a man. And El Cholo, I forget what his last name is, but El Cholo Saucedo from Mexicali, if I'm not mistaken, a fighter that he ended up causing a brain bleed on, and then that fighter retired after that because he could not fight again because the cerebral harm that he had taken was career ending. Nonetheless, Arnold Barbosa could have fought O'Hara Davies or the fighter who once fought for Undisputed, Jose Ramirez, two-time belt holder at 140. Golden Boy had everything going for him and all of his fighters, all these great opportunities. And what happens is, ladies and gentlemen, O'Hara Davies and his exasperation to be an active fighter, and we don't hold that against him, they put him up against Ismael Barroso, and one of the most incredible things happened. In about 1 minute's time into the very first round, O'Hara Davies goes in, overzealous and eager to beat up on the old man. And the old man in the southpaw position, he throws a hook with the two, with his left hand, just graces, but completely turns the head around of O'Hara Davies. O'Hara Davies starts fumbling everywhere. The old man from Venezuela comes forward, hits him, drops him. O'Hara Davies gets himself up. He's hurt. He's dizzy. He's wobbly. He gathers himself and he gets picked up. And then here he comes again. He's allowed to continue. And then the Venezuelan old man, he comes and he barrages him and he drops him again. And they pick up O'Hara Davies. And then the third man on the ring there, Celestino Cruz, if I'm not mistaken, he's a referee from Puerto Rico. He looks him and he says, "Can you continue?" O'Hara Davies says yes, but he doesn't make eye contact. He looks deflated. His eyes don't make eye contact with the ref. He continues to glance down, and they wave up the fight. Ismael Barroso becomes the baby belt holder at 140 to get the shot once again against Rolly Romero. And he calls out Rolly Romero. He calls out Ryan Garcia. He calls out everybody. It was incredible. The old man did it again. He upset the plans of Golden Boy and O'Hara Davies. O'Hara Davies bet on himself. He figured that having a 1 year layoff again was going to be detrimental to his career. And it was, because he's fought one fight a year for the past 5 years or so. And he wanted to get a tune-up fight. And it turns out that Ismael Barroso is not a tune-up. He is one of the toughest fighters out there. Like, he just proved it in a one-punch drop. And the same way that Rolly Romero once said about him, he is one of the toughest, hardest punchers he's ever faced. Incredible. Ladies and gentlemen, O'Hara Davies put his career on the line. He bet on himself, and he lost. But guess what? This is the sport of boxing, where fighters every day bet on themselves and leave it up to destiny or fate to decide what happens. Sometimes they win, sometimes you lose. And I can say O'Hara Davies, his very first outing, which should have been his welcome and homecoming to his welcome to the United States of America was a bust, a crushing defeat, and it's one of the most memorable things that can even be fathomed by the boxing world. Ismael Barroso won. But if that was not enough, ladies and gentlemen, there was another incredible thing that happened. Tony Weeks was playing the third man position for the main event fight that starred Virgil Ortiz and Frederick Lawson. Again, these fighters that had just moved up to one weight class, and one fighter who has been laid off of the sport for 2 years because of very debilitating and concerning health reasons. Right now, Tony Weeks had been the referees that stopped the Ismael Barroso Rolando Romero fight, and one of the most controversial fights I've ever seen, and the one biggest blunder of last year, 2023. And coincidentally enough, Rolly Romero was in the arena when the fight was taking place. Ismael Barroso was in the ring fighting, and Tony Weeks was in the house. Goodness, he was in the house playing the third man in the ring for the main event fight. And the same thing happened. Virgil Ortiz, in about 2 minutes of action, he pulls his fighter up, takes him to the corner. Nothing big, nothing incredible has happened so far. But he takes Frederick Lawson to the corner and he starts throwing a couple of punches. For the majority of the punches, they're all blocked, ladies and gentlemen. Now, Virgil Ortiz is a very heavy handed fighter. So even though his opponent is blocking and defending himself well, keeping his dukes up, and those punches aren't landing flush, they're obviously going to be strong enough to eventually get his opponent hurt or to open up, to expose him to something. But nonetheless, nothing is going on. And as one fighter just gets pushed to the ropes and he just shows up, Virgil Ortiz starts throwing a volley of punches and bolos, none of them really landing. And then Tony Weeks does it again. He halts the action, counts out the fighter, waves him off. It's over in about 2 minutes' time. The same referee who ruined one of the most significant fights of last year for a legitimate belt at 140, he does the same exact thing with all of the same players in the same arena. He pulls the same thing. And Virgil Ortiz, after having 2 years been out of the sport, he gets no more than 1 minute and a half of action to warm up. His opponent has no opportunity to defend himself. He's not warned of putting his dukes up or showing him anything. He just stops him willy-nilly, and everybody goes crazy. All these fans that have traveled from Texas to Las Vegas to watch their hometown fighter, they're disillusioned. All these people that have paid big money in order to watch a good event, they are robbed of their money. And us fans who follow the sport religiously and we want to see where the career of Virgil Ortiz stands, we don't get that opportunity to gauge exactly what he can do in the sport after 2 years laid off at 154 or 160 because Tony Weeks ruined it again. It was incredible. Now, it gets worse because all of this commotion, this brouhaha, starts leaving a bunch of questions. Last year, they had interrogated Tony Weeks to basically asking what had happened. And he starts saying something about, when he saw Barroso taking punches, he saw that he wasn't defending himself. He said that he saw some things going on there uh, where his eyes were rolling back. And in reality, that was it, basically just, Barroso just moving back and forth to try and avoid punches. And he said that he saw something there that led him to believe that Ismael Barroso, was hurt, and his main priority is, of course, the health and the safety of the boxers. So he said he did the right thing according to what his job primordial is, which is protect the fighter from unnecessary harm. Now, when this happened, the first thing that the boxing world thought is that's that's bunk, because we're seeing it with our eyes. We knew that the fight was a fight promoted by the PBC and uh, the the Money Team, because Rolly Romero is a fighter for Money Mayweather in this promotion, the Money Team, or Mayweather Promotions. And lo and behold, the fight ends declaring him the winner at the end. So everybody thought, okay, corruption, right? Tony Weeks stopped the fight when the home town fighter, the favorite promotion fighter, was losing clearly. And they couldn't have that because there was too much invested in the PBC and in Mayweather Promotions that Rolly Romero had to win the belt. So people thought corruption. Now, what people are now questioning about this most recent fight is not necessarily corruption. People are questioning whether Tony Weeks is just completely inept, unable to execute his duties professionally because he is just too far removed from the instructions that a referee is to abide by, and he does not have proper discernment, proper visual acuity to determine with good judgment when a fighter is harmed or not. So those are two very different things: corruption and complete ineptitude. But combined, they make for a referee that has no place in this sport. If you are a referee that the derogatory term of being corrupt follows you, well, guess what? A lot of promoters, a lot of fighters, they may actually refuse to accept the fight where you're the referee because you have that history associated with you that you're corrupt. But what happens if you are a referee that just doesn't know how to do his job, or cannot see well because you're too old, or you are completely sensitive, overly sensitive, so that you stop fights prematurely because you believe a fighter is taking too much harm when in reality they haven't? What do you do when you cannot expect a referee to be impartial and fair and evenly balanced? What can you expect from that? You don't know what kind of referee you're gonna get. Are you gonna get that world class refereeing that Tony Weeks is known for some of the biggest matches in all of the sport of boxing, where he's just been fair and square? Or are you gonna get a referee like the one that did the third man work on the Badu Jack versus the Gale fight? My icon for the night, ladies and gentlemen. That fighter right there with the bloody face, his name is Badu Jack. That fight is considered by many to be one of the most gruesome and violent fights in boxing history. Badu Jack had a slash about 6 inches long and about an inch wide, running from his brow all the way to his nose. He continued to bleed out from that wound. And after they cleaned it, the blood would just continue to spill forth. The Gale a fighter who turned out to be on some type of performance enhancing drugs, continued to pummel his opponent. And his opponent, Badu Jack, the icon that I'm using for the night, he continued to fight with all that bloodletting, his face looking like something out of snuff film. And guess who did the third man work on that fight? Yes, ladies and gentlemen, referee Tony Weeks did the third man work on that fight. One of the most gruesome fights that continued to become more gruesome because he refused to stop it. That guy who was bleeding for at least 6 rounds straight with one of the biggest gashes and split faces you've seen, he continued to fight because Tony Weeks did not see it fit to stop that fight because he didn't think the fighter, Buddy Jack, was hurt enough. And now we get a stoppage of Ismael Barroso when the stakes are at their highest for a shot at becoming great at one of the oldest fighters in current sport at 40 or 42 years of age. He robs him of the sport because Rolando Romero throws a flurry of 7 punches that none of them land. And yesterday he stops a fight because Virgil Ortiz throws 5 or so punches that are blocked for the most part. In one fight being deemed one of the most corrupt decisions ever, and in the other one likely one of the most inept ones that indicates that this man has no place in the sport. Where is the consistency, ladies and gentlemen? I am not a referee. Oh, Mr. Vince Vargas, let me just cut this right here. Mr. Vince Vargas, Happy New Year, brother. Hey, here we go. Son, can you pull this right here? I want wait. Here. I want you to pull that. Yeah, okay. Yeah, wait, one moment. I want Mr. Vince Vargas to see the following. Mr. Vince Vargas, I'm gonna pull this right here. This is a little celebratory fun TNT kind of thing, completely safe. But here we go. Anchu, can you pull that right there? Let's celebrate. Don't point it at me though. Just put it. There you go. Happy New Year, Mr. Vince Vargas. Always a pleasure, sir. I hope that the start to the year has been an excellent one for you and yours. I hope you've set up a couple of resolutions uh, that will make you a better person. Hopefully, a more prosperous year to yourself. Um, but yeah, I have a couple of resolutions. Fixed 2 cars this year. One of them is very close, a 1964 Volvo that we're making into a custom slight mod hot rod little thing, right? And a 1970 Apollo, which is one of the very first. Yeah, pop that one also. One of the very first videos that we ever made. It was where I was. There you go. Happy New Year. um, One of the very first videos, if not the very first video that I hopped on with the homie Ricky, was one where I was working in a 1970 Impala that I ended up donating to one of my brothers. I hope to fix that one. That one's a rust bucket. Uh, and this Volvo that's just a few finishing touches from straightening out the body. We've already gotten in a couple of steps of priming and last minute touches, but I hope to finish those things. And of course, Mr. Vince, in case you did not hear that, my other New Year's resolution, and this might just be a little bit disgusting. Yeah, pop this one also. But I do not hydrate myself enough. Just one more. Here we go. But don't point it at me though, because those things are scary. Yeah, 2024. And And to hydrate myself more, Mr. Vargas, I don't drink enough liquids, in particular water. So my urine is always orangey or something like that. And now I'm gonna drink water until everything comes out clean, and that's my task for every day. So here's my water bottle. I hope you've made some resolutions of your own, Mr. Vargas. But yeah, I thank you very much again for joining us on this live. And because 2024 is going to be the year of revelation, I've revealed my ugly mug once again. Now let's go back to the comforts of anonymity. But Mr. Vince Vargas, oh yeah, I have my Chicano power hat right here because as an American of Mexican descent, I may be unbiased when I report my news, but I still have the responsibility of representing the culture of an American along with the one of my antecedents, my family from Mexico, in particular the state of Michigan, is what they call it, or Michoacan. But nonetheless, good day to you, and I hope you've been doing well. Thank you for joining us. Going back to the anonymity, because I do not want to break the glass on my phone screen, nor do I want to scare you with my ugly mug. So, yeah, and Mr. Vargas, if you want to tell us what your resolutions are for this year, if you do play that game, Mr. Vargas, please let us do so. Let us know so that we can remind you periodically over the year. If you've still been working at it, we have to help each other out whenever we can. To be better people, be better members of our community, of our society, and just overall, just to improve ourselves. So, if you want to let us know what your resolutions are for this year, 2024, feel free, and I assure you, I won't judge you. I will support you in your endeavors. Now, going back to this whole controversy with Tony Weeks, since I'm not a referee, I decided that I was going to investigate really what the job of a referee is. And I was reading the rules of refereeing for boxing because there's different ones. There's for boxing, mixed martial arts, and those things. And the main job of a referee is, of course, to look out for a fighter's health, to allow the fighters to fight with the least interruptions, basically only enforcing the rules of boxing, which is uh, defend yourself at all times, and when you can't, well, I'm going to stop the fight because you're exposing yourself to too much harm. No clinching, no holding, no hitting below the belt. That's basically as simple as it boils down to, right? There's other stuff, make sure that you know when to stop the the action, when to take a fighter to the corner so that he could have a medical evaluation, so forth and so on. But I wanted to find out, what does it take? What kind of considerations are there for a referee to stop a fight due to a fighter being seriously hurt? Now, for the most part, when a fighter's not defending himself, like what occurred the day of yesterday between Virgil Ortiz and Frederick Lawson, what can happen is if a fighter's not defending himself, of course he's going to get hurt, right? Because the lack of defense is going to lead to successful offense from the perpetrator of the offensive attack. And then, of course, the physical harm is going to demonstrate on the fighter who is being hurt. Now, that doesn't mean that just because you're not being active or throwing any kind of punches, that does not necessarily mean you are being hurt, or that you are not fighting. That might just mean, clear as day, that you are just defending yourself, evading punches, blocking punches. And that's what was taking place last night, this weekend, with Frederick Lawson, as he was basically evading the majority of the punches that Virgil Ortiz was throwing. I do know that some referees, if they see a fighter not throwing punches while the other one is throwing a lot, whether they land or not, they will warn him and say, you have to defend yourself at all times. Or if he feels that a fighter is taking too many punches, he will tell him, you have to show me something. I know that Jack Reese is famous for telling fighters when he sees that they are being hurt or inactive enough and they're just giving away too many points in rounds, he will tell them, you have to show me something. And the reason they say you have to show me something is one, because if you're not doing nothing, you're losing the fight, and therefore you're not fighting and you're not entertaining the fanatics. Then what are you here for? That's one way of getting a fighter to become more active and to start throwing punches in order to, for one, defend himself, two, allow himself an opportunity to win, and three, entertain. And secondly, when they tell him, show me something, that's their indication of saying, look, I think you're taking too much punishment. And if you don't do something about it, I'm going to stop it. Tony Weeks did not say that either before he decided to just wave off the fight in favor of Virgil Ortiz, right? So he did that second thing that is completely the norm for the more professional, more more consistent of referees, which is he never once gave an indication that he was going to stop the fight. And there shouldn't have been any kind of indication because there was no indication whatsoever that Frederick Lawson was hurt, right? So when you put these things together, you start asking, is Tony Weeks is Tony Weeks even abiding by the rules of refereeing? Now, I'm gonna. I hope I don't go on mute or something like that. But I'm about to bring up a report, and I'm not too sure if you will hear this part or not, my beloved listeners. But I'm gonna read one of the more crucial things that I caught on to when I was reading the rules of refereeing for boxing. One of the things uh, that a referee can consider when he's about to stop a fight is the opinion of the medical professional, because there's always going to be a doctor on the corner to determine whether the doctor is in agreement that a fighter is harmed in order to stop a fight. Now, rarely is that ever used, right? I mean, unless there's a serious physical sign that a fighter is hurt, like for example, a laceration above the brow or near the eye of a fighter, or a very seriously broken nose or something to that effect. In that case, when there's something physically visible indicating harm, then he could call the medic, the physician, over and say, "Hey, doc, I needed to look at this." They usually stop the action for a while, call the doc over, tell him, "What do you think, doctor?" The doctor performs a quick medical evaluation, shines a light in the eyes to determine whether there is any kind of uh, function, conscientious function, uh, and reflexes there. And then the doctor will say, you know what, he's good to go. Or they tell him, you know what, you got to defend yourself, or so forth and so on. Uh, Tony Weeks didn't do that. Now, it's not a necessity to bring a medical professional to help you determine whether a fighter is ready to have the fight stopped. But that is one of the things that the rule book states, that if a referee does not have the proper judgment or requires the opinion to help determine a proper judgment on when to stop a fight, that he should consult provider on the corner for that second supporting opinion. Tony Weeks did not do that. Let's go on. Another rule is a knockdown can also be scored if the ropes are the only thing that is holding the boxer up. Okay, a knockdown can be scored if the only thing that's holding the boxer up is the ropes. Now, this one is very crucial because this one actually might be relevant to the decision for why Tony Weeks decided to stop this fight. Recall that I had mentioned that Frederick Lawson was taken to the ropes, basically walked back by Virgil Ortiz Jr. And in the ropes, Virgil Ortiz Jr. had his prey cornered, and he starts throwing punches. Again, none of which lands flush. Virgil Ortiz is a powerful puncher. Nonetheless, nothing is landing flush, not to the body, not to the face. And this is where at least you can say that Tony Weeks may have been under the impression that Frederick Lawson was hurt and that the only thing that was holding up Frederick Lawson from toppling over or being knocked out or knocked down is the ropes. Now, recall what I told you right here. What does the rule book state? It says a knockdown can also be scored if the ropes are the only thing holding the boxer up. A knockdown can be scored if the ropes is the only thing holding the boxer up. So, of course, when we factor that rule right there, that would mean that instead of stopping the fight, should Tony Weeks have figured that Frederick Lawson was hurt, he should have told Virgil Ortiz, Virgil, stop, stop, started a count, given a standing 8 count, asked Frederick Lawson if he wanted to continue. He would have looked on whether or not Frederick Lawson gave eye to eye contact. And then, of course, with that being said, the fight could continue depending on what the reaction or the response of Frederick Lawson was. All right. Went to the gym. Nice. So he did not do that either. Tony Weeks did not give a standing count on the impression that Frederick Lawson was only being held up by the ropes. So he never gave a knockdown in favor of Virgil, and he never gave a knockdown working against Frederick Lawson, which would at least indicate to Frederick Lawson that he's down in the points. So therefore, you got to bring that action. He did not do that either, ladies and gentlemen. So many mistakes on Tony Weeks' part that now you have to question, when was the last time that Tony Weeks read the rule book for refereeing? Now, I cannot hop back into the page that I'm reading the rules of refereeing on, because if I do so, I believe there will cause some sonic intermittence that will disallow you from hearing what I am reading out, because I have to hop from this page to another one. But nonetheless, what I'm trying to state is there was never a standing 8 count on account that the ropes were holding up Frederick Lawson. So he just prematurely stopped the fight. And he's done this for two fights priorly, where one has been alleged to be one of the most corrupt, illogical decisions on Tony Weeks' part ever. And this one, which is just a complete indication that he is inept and no longer fit to be the third man in the ring. This is all foul, uh, ladies and gentlemen. And I don't know what we have to do as fans, as viewers of this beautiful, violent sport, in order to report our displeasure with Tony Weeks. Maybe to the NSAC, or maybe we have to write to the sanctioning bodies or something. But somebody has to speak up and state we need consistency. We need investigations of these third men in the ring because in the case of Ismael Barroso, it would have been one of those incredible stories of boxing. Had a 40-year-old man with no name recognition who just came out of a very small country, if not mistaken, Venezuela, who's going through some hard financial trials and tribulations politically, that he should come out of there and become a champion at that age, beating the home promoted fighter and Rolly Romero. He robbed that man of his moment of greatness. And this weekend, Tony Weeks robbed a fighter, Frederick Lawson, from an opportunity to prove himself as a valuable contender and experienced professional journeyman. He made him look like he had nothing to offer in the sport, having that fight stopped in a round and a half. And he robbed Virgil Ortiz of an opportunity to warm up after being out of the sport for 2 years. He robbed the viewers of a good fight night, and he robbed the paying customers that decided to drive across town in Las Vegas to enclose himself in this venue to watch some of these fighters put their life and limb on the line for our entertainment. Tony Weeks has to go. And it gets worse, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Adam Hurley, good commentary, warp speed. Thank you very much for the kind words, Mr. Hurley. You are one of our best listeners. I always appreciate when all of our listeners come on, and I would like to wish you, just like I wished Mr. Vince Vargas, a happy new year, Mr. Hurley. I hope you have a lot of good things coming your way this year. If you want to reveal and share with us what you figure are your New Year's resolutions so that we can remind you periodically over the year so that we can support each other, please let us know in the comment section. Let us know what you are wanting to work on this year, and we'll make sure that I remind you here and there during the year. Mr. Hurley, my son is about to pop one of those poppers in celebration of this new year for you. Here we go. Happy New Year. Mr. Vince Vargas states, if a fighter gets knocked down through the ropes outside the ring, is the fighter automatically knocked out, or is the fighter allowed to get back in the fight if he seems okay to continue? LOL. Funny thought. Um, in the case of, that's well, I think, you know what, Mr. Vargas, I think that's very similar to what transpires uh, in wrestling, professional wrestling, or WWE, or New Japan Pro Wrestling, or Lucha Underground, or whatnot. When a fighter gets dropped and out of the ropes, I think their job is still to come back up into the ring before the 10 count. And the reason I say that is because a few years ago, in the retirement fight of Bernard, the alien Hopkins, the executioner Hopkins, when he fought Joe Smith after just having stated a few months prior that he would never get knocked out by a white boy, according to how he stated, Joe Smith takes him to the corner. He beats up on Bernard Hopkins, knocks him out the rope. Bernard Hopkins falls in the chair, his feet dangling all up in the air, and Joe Smith wins. For the most part, B Hop was, of course, knocked down, but he was not knocked out. He was completely conscious and vivid, in fact, quite livid, because that happened. But the fight was stopped. And I would say the same applies, Mr. Vargas. If a fighter can get himself back in the ring, the countdown will still continue, and he would have to demonstrate that he is fit and able to continue. But I tell you one thing, Mr. Vargas, if you somehow got knocked down to the point that you are out of the out of the ropes, right through the ropes and outside the ring, likely you're not going to be in any kind of condition to continue your fighting. So I would say, yep, I'm pretty sure that's as knockout as it's going to get, because it's going to take too long to get back in there. And after fighting it through chairs and ropes and everything like that, who knows what kind of harm you took. But that's a very good question, and I really don't know the answer. But I'm gonna have to investigate that for your sake and also for mine, Mr. Vargas, because that's a very interesting situation right there. The homie Ricky states Michigan with three exclamation points. So I guess that means Michigan won the Super Bowl of college. Mr. Adam Hurley says, Happy New Year, guys. And of course, that goes for all of our listeners. Mr. Hurley, a wonderful listener of ours, is wishing you all a Happy New Year. That means a lot. Mr. Vince Vargas with a little funny guy, little funny face. I'm not too sure what that one smiley means, but I guess he's being like a sort of like playful, something like that. I don't know what that little funny guy is. But Mr. Adam Hurley writes, I don't have any resolutions this year, really. I'm just looking forward to watching the Lakers and some good boxing this year. Yeah, Mr. Hurley, you know what? That's been one of the things that I've been wanting to get back into a lot. Basketball. Uh, but I don't have any television programming. And rarely ever does ESPN Plus allow us to watch basketball. I myself don't get local channels. I think I have to buy one of those little 99-cent store antennas to get the local channels, which would bring me ABC, Fox, CBS, and whatnot to watch some of those games. But I've been saying that I want to watch basketball for years now, and I just somehow never happened. So yeah, I hope you get to watch a lot of Lakers. I hope they are a successful team this year. I know that they, they just had a very good game a couple of days ago. I think I heard about it, or I watched a little. I can't remember, but yeah, go Lakers. And yeah, if you don't make any resolutions, Mr. Hurley, that's fine. You know, we're a lot of us are old enough to just realize that we don't have to wait for the right moment to start and achieving our goals. You know, a lot of the times the reason why we make resolutions at the beginning of the year is because it's a reminder that we can start anew. But yeah, I remember when I didn't make any resolutions. I just have to now, Mr. Hurley, because some are health related, like the one that I was explaining. I have to drink more water because I never drink any liquids. So my urine always comes out the color of pumpkins. So I have to make sure that I urinate to the point of no, no, no. That was going to be for whoever else up, son. That's popular. That's for someone else. But I have to make sure that I drink enough water to the point that my urine comes out clear. Mr. Vargas states the way you describe the Hopkins feet dangling. Also, when you said if a fighter gets knocked out the ring, probably not a good chance of him getting back in there. Punch drunk. Yeah. Yeah. For the most part, I would say at least punch drunk. But so uh, Mr. Vargas, when Joe Smith Jr. knocked out Mr. Bernard Hopkins, that was Mr. Bernard Hopkins' last fight. Um, I don't want to say that that knockout was so devastating, uh, but I mean, isn't that also symbolic? A fighter knocks you out the ring when you're already close to 40 years of age. That's like saying you don't belong in the ring, and let me show you. I'm pushing you out the ropes. Goodbye. And I think men like Bernard Hopkins are astute enough to know, okay, there's a symbolism there. No longer belong in the sport. I've done my part. I've achieved greatness. If I'm not mistaken, he was one of the very first undisputed fighters in the four belt era. And if you ever look at the repertoire of Bernard Hopkins, his is incredible, incredible. And he didn't need to do anything in the sport. But the last thing you want to do is walk out the sport with your legs up in the air and your head resting on a foldable chair. Yeah. um, I guess and we should continue. So going back to Tony Weeks, I tell you that it gets worse. And I apologize that this rant is taking so long, guys, but let me tell you how it gets worse. Tony Weeks is being asked what happened. Because, of course, this is a big commotion in the world of boxing. We've been salivating at the opportunity to watch Virgil Ortiz after 2 years. Remember, the last thing he was going to do is fight Emantis Stanionis for the opportunity to fight Terence Crawford for his IBF belt. And then all of a sudden, medical conditions have kept him out the sport for 2 years. We want to know if he's still that fighter that was a marauder, a killer, a knockout artist. We want to know if he still has it after going through so much, including personal issues with his father as his trainer, going back to his old successful trainer in Robert Garcia, and after having gone up really 2 weight classes to 160 to test himself there because it's just too hard to make 154. And Tony Weeks and his actions disappointed everybody, but they asked him what happened, and this is where it gets even more controversial. And now I'm gonna take up the words of Mr. Tony Weeks when he answers the following. Written by Jake Donovan, an individual that I've read his reports for. He writes for Boxing News. It's titled "The Golden Boy Reacts to Tony Weeks' Statements on Frederick Lawson" by Jake Donovan, January the 8th, 2024, the year of our Lord. And he goes on to state that Golden Boy Promotions was forced to address allegations surrounding the medical clearance process for the Virgil Ortiz Frederick Lawson The Zone headliner this past Saturday at Virgin Hotels Las Vegas. Ortiz was credited with a first round stoppage win, though referee Tony Weeks was rightly criticized for what was regarded by many as an extremely quick stoppage. On Sunday, the longtime ring official took to social media to explain his actions. Now, I'm going to read this in a form that I enunciate words clearly and state so in a form that I hope the words are emphatic. Tony Weeks went to social media and explained his actions with the following message. What the public didn't know is that prior to the fight, they did a brain scan on him. He's referring to Frederick Lawson. He states in a now deleted Facebook post. It came up that he had an aneurysm, and they did a test again, and the same aneurysm came up. Another doctor was brought in and gave him the same examination, and he tested negative for the aneurysm. So they cleared him to fight. It continues. Beto Duran noted on in their post-fight interview that Weeks told him that he saw Lawson's eyes roll back while under attack by Ortiz, which, because there was no standing 8 count, prompted him to stop the fight. Weeks was not present in the ring at the time that Beto Duran stated that. Now, let's read that again. Tony Weeks states, what the public didn't know is that prior to the fight, they did a brain scan on him. So apparently, Frederick Lawson underwent some kind of neurological examination at the hands of probably a neurologist, perhaps the involvement of a neurosurgeon, because they detected an aneurysm. Right? Now, an aneurysm, if you, ladies and gentlemen, don't know what that is, an aneurysm is a ballooning and weakened area in an artery. An aneurysm can occur in the aorta, the brain, the back of the knee, intestine, or spleen. A ruptured aneurysm can result in internal bleeding, stroke, and can sometimes be fatal. So Tony Weeks is stating that Frederick Lawson, a couple of weeks prior to the fight, he met with the neurologist. The neurologist determined that one of his arteries had a weakening, ballooning taking place to it, so that there was an accrual of blood there. And should that artery burst, then there would be internal bleeding. And if it happened to be in his lungs or in his brain, then that would lead to a stroke or a pulmonary embolism. That is fatal. Remember, just a couple of weeks ago, I thought I was going through something similar to that. It turned out that it was just purple colored gum. But nonetheless, Tony Weeks is alleging that they repeated that scan with another provider, the same scan, and a second provider determined that there was the presence of an aneurysm in, which I reckon is the brain of of uh, of this fighter, Frederick Lawson. Because I don't know what other type of aneurysm he may be referring to, right? The most affected body parts in a fight that it tends to get brain bleeds, blood clots, and aneurysms usually is the brain from the punching. He doesn't elaborate that it was in the head or nothing like that, because an aneurysm could just be a ballooning and a weakening of the walls of an artery at any part of the body. But for the most part, I reckon it's going to be the brain. And he alleges that a second doctor discovered the same thing until they took him to a third doctor. And the third doctor determined there was no aneurysm present. He tested negative for an aneurysm. So, because of that, he was medically cleared to fight in a fight that he was going up in a weight class up, and that he was going to be fighting a fighter that really was another weight class even above that one, because Virgil Ortiz came in weighing at 156 when the other guy came in weighing at 152. Now, my question to you, ladies and gentlemen, and this may explain why Mr. Tony Weeks erased his missive, is how did Tony Weeks know this medical crucial information? Who told Tony Weeks the crucial and protected medical information of a fighter like Frederick Lawson? I don't know if you guys know this, but any any patient is protected by a law called HIPAA. HIPAA is a law that protects crucial and sensitive personal medical information of any individual. If anybody asks you for any type of medical information, like perhaps an employer or something to that effect, if you claim that you are suffering from a medical condition, and as a result of the medical condition you must have some days of absence or FMLA provided or something to that effect, you do not have to divulge any kind of medical information. You can get your medical provider to substantiate and provide constancy of a medical condition for which you would require a family medical leave of absence, an FMLA, or any kind of other approved absentia types, but they don't have to go into details. And my question to you is, who told Tony Weeks any kind of medical information regarding Frederick Lawson? And further, why should Tony Weeks care? Right? If he has been medically cleared to fight by the sanctioning bodies, if the NSAC, the Nevada State Athletic Commission, gets medical reporting from a fighter that states that that fighter is suitable to fight and medically capable of doing so, I don't believe that that medical information should even make it to the hands of a referee. And I assure you, in the guidelines of refereeing for boxing, never there is there a segment that talks about how a referee is privileged access to medical information on a fighter. The reason for why a referee should not have access to that kind of information is because that type of information can taint his judgment. If a fighter has an aneurysm and the referee knows beforehand that the aneurysm is there because somebody revealed it to him, then of course it's understandable that the referee is going to be aware and conscientious of the fact that this fighter has some type of weakening of the cerebral arteries that can expose him to harm. And because his primordial duty is to protect the fighter, then of course he's going to be completely conscious of that, and he's going to be hypersensitive knowing that information, and it's just going to change the outcome of the fight because of that information that is leading to a predetermined and expected way of refereeing in the fight. And I don't believe that's fair. I believe a referee is supposed to judge the fight according to what he sees there. Because if because the fact of the matter is, it goes on to state that in the case of Barroso, this is what he stated. He stated that in the case of Barroso, the reason why he decided to stop that fight is because Barroso, as a 40-year-old man, he was older. Thus, his understanding of the sport is the older you are, the less facile it is for you to recover, the more the harm is impactful against the older fighter. And because of the fact that that fighter is older, he had to be aware that he can get hurt much quicker and more seriously at the hands of a younger fighter. But ladies and gentlemen, isn't that, and I don't like to use any isms, but isn't that discrimination based off age? If we start thinking like Tony Weeks, does that mean that after a certain age, a fighter should expect their fights to be stopped because referees are going to start deeming yourself susceptible to harm because you're old? Well, why don't we tell that to Bernard Hopkins, who fought almost to the age of 40? What about George Foreman, who fought, I think, if I'm not mistaken, at 45 and became a world champion at heavyweight? Why don't we tell that to Mayweather or Manny Pacquiao, who are fighting nearly in their 40s and beating all these fighters? Age has nothing to do with a sport that is won over by skills and
Nothing
resilience.
whatsoever.
You understand? And this is what I'm trying to get at. Tony Weeks is in one case using the age of a fighter to discriminate against them and making them exposed to losses just due on age.
Wait,
And
what?
secondly, he's using medical information that he should not be privileged to,
What?
and using that information to judge a fight instead of using his eyeballs and his discernment and his
Wait,
wisdom to know what is transpiring in a fight.
he did that?
Tony Weeks erased that deleted Facebook explanation because he knew he
Wow.
was in violation of
Well,
medically sensitive and private information of a fighter. And
I
my
got.
question to you, my beloved listeners, is who gave Tony Weeks that impression? Or better yet, who gave Tony Weeks that information?
Can you hear me?
The only one that can really clear up the air is Frederick Lawson. He could come up any moment and say, yes, it's true. I did suffer an aneurysm. I did go to a couple of medical providers. They did tell me that. And then the third one told me there was no presence of an aneurysm. He can say that. He can also refute Tony Weeks and say, I never had any aneurysms. I never met with any providers. But my question is, who let Tony Weeks know this privileged, sensitive medical information that led to the outcome of the fight that we just seen last weekend? There is so much foul, so many shenanigans with this past weekend's events that I believe, ladies and gentlemen, if we allow this to continue, our sport is going to be affected adversely at the hands of once capable referees who are now so old and so used in their ways that they've become inconsistent because they may no longer abide by the rule books, and because they may no longer care for the sport enough. When they start talking about a fighter being subjected to harm due to age, we should question them. 20 weeks and nearly 65, 70 years of age. Are you too inept to referee because of age? 20 weeks has proven to be bad for the sport, and I find it very offensive that a fighter like Frederick Lawson can seemingly look like a fighter that has nothing to provide as a journeyman, and Virgil Ortiz to be made looked at as a killer solely because he threw six punches that were mostly blocked. People were robbed of a good night of boxing, and all because of Tony Weeks having repeated the same kind of crazy judgment that he showed last year in one of the worst controversies of 2023. Shameful. Tony Weeks has to go.
Yeah, that was a
This
bad decision, huh?
absolutely bad decision. It was one of the most embarrassing things one of the incredible, Drew. Drew, is that you?
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to get like a reply from you because I didn't know if I was like working or not. And yeah, I
Oh,
was like,
well, no, Drew, you sound very, very distant. I heard some sounds in the background, but I couldn't hear
really?
you. But can you say something? I just want to see if I can listen.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I could hear you now. Yeah, sorry, Drew.
Okay.
Yeah, so what were you saying?
Oh, yeah, no, dude, that's crazy because I mean, I like even if Tony Weeks actually um, like say like somebody told him that oh hey he had a brain aneurysm and that source was like a family member or somebody close to him, you know, like he still can't really like take that into consideration, like just because he heard someone have an aneurysm it doesn't like, and I'm just throwing away the fact that he got access to some to that information because some the family members can't even see any of that. It's really just for Frederick Lawson to see. Nobody else, not even like the mom, no one, bro. Like so, it's probably like if it was like like Tony Weeks was actually told that Frederick Lawson had an aneurysm,
Yeah,
then somebody would somebody told him, and it should have still shouldn't have taken effect in the fight. You know, like I don't know I don't know what Tony Weeks was thinking when he like posted that because I mean even if he's like even if he did know that, like I don't think he can actually like get in trouble for that because there is no proof that he got his hands on some of those documents. You know, so I think
exactly.
yeah, there's no proof that he got his hands. The only way, look, the only way cuz I actually like you know, I worked at a hospital, you know, I did 10 PCR reports,
Yeah,
but the so the information that I was writing down, that was just me, the patient, and the doctor. Like, and it was just, you know, the vitals and all that. Like, even that information, no one was supposed to know. You know, so it was like somebody in a higher up in the medical field has to mess up for somebody else to get their hands on that on those files, you know, because those are really highly, you know, protected files that they have, you know, like
absolutely.
it's, you know, and they like I'm telling you, not even like your closest people can't even see that, you know. So I think Tony Weeks was kind of talking out of his, you know what, you know, I think he heard about it, and I mean
Hmm.
that, and you know it probably scares you as a ref. You're like, fuck, dude, like is this fucking true? You know, if you say like their whole family's telling you, hey hey my husband, my dad is fighting, and he needs money, but just keep that in mind, he had a brain aneurysm, so please, like, keep him safe, you know.
Yeah,
So
and that's where I was getting to, Drew. I believe that information, if it's true, because the only one that could verify or discredit these these allegations, or at least the response of Tony Weeks, is really Frederick Lawson or somebody in this camp,
Yeah,
somebody privileged to that information. Like you
well, the
said, family
doctor,
member.
like not even a family is supposed to, like, the doctor is supposed to tell him, Frederick Lawson, directly, and he's only supposed to pull a file when, when it's time to, like, like go into surgery for the brain aneurysm. Like, it was just for that one time. So I mean, it just it just doesn't make sense what Tony Weeks was saying, because I mean, if I was a ref, imagine their family telling you that. Like,
Yeah.
I'd be like, kind of like, damn, dude, what the fuck did I sign up for? Like, I wish you would have, like, canceled this fight. Now I gotta, like,
Yeah, no,
I don't want to be responsible for your life.
exactly. Yeah. So look, Drew, look, one of our listeners, Larry Liston, he's pessimistic on the sport, right? Um, and rightfully so. This sport is rife with corruption. It's been that historically. And right now, you know what? Right now, we'll read a couple of comments. Mr. Vince Vargas, the homie Ricky, and of course the Mexican G. We'll read your comments. Please don't leave. Let's just hash this out right quick between Drew and I. Um, I don't want to interrupt this flow of thoughts, but uh, Drew, the
Yep.
only one that we can suspect that shared this information was Frederick Lawson,
Yeah.
because
Yep.
it's Frederick Lawson's medical information. And here's the thing: Tony Weeks gave detailed information about Frederick Lawson's medical history. So the
Mhm.
only one that can know this information, first off, before anybody, is Frederick Lawson and his doctor. Now, or his doctors in this case, because there would be up to three. So the first culprit, the person that would be closest to Tony Weeks to reveal this information, would be the fighter himself, because that is his medical information. Not even his trainer is going to be in that corner, unless his trainer
Right.
is like his father or otherwise,
Hmm.
or maybe a longtime trainer or whatever. Nonetheless, it has
Yeah.
to be a confidant. But
Right.
he basically gave detailed information about the medical history of Lawson, which leads me to believe that Lawson himself or someone in his camp gave that information in order to protect Lawson. So my question is, Drew, why did the NSCA have this information? Because if it's true, the NSCA basically knew that this fighter had a history of taking tests in order to
Well,
clear to fight. And secondly, why did he fight knowing that he was himself not willing to give 100% in the ring for us
so I'm
or for
trying
his
to
money?
think. Yeah, no, I'm trying to think the process. So you need a take a physical, right? And I think it probably popped up during the physical, and I think they probably went through, like, brain like CAT scans, because once you're not passing the physical, they got to find out what the issue is. And then, I mean, in order for you to, like, continue to fight, like, you can just ignore the issue, and then you can, whatever the issue is, and you can just, like, say they find out you have cancer through your physical. I mean, they gotta actually report that, and they gotta actually send you in for scans. If you don't want them to report that, then you can't fight. And I think like, he had a history of brain aneurysms, but he had like, they can't see that during the physical, you know like, they're not scanning your brain or anything like that. So he had to have had history of brain aneurysm, and it probably, popped up in the physical, you know and or, like, it probably, like, you probably see, like, the history in this physical or something, bro. Like, somebody had to have leaked it, you know yeah, when you get the physical, they're asking you, like, what's your history, like, what is it, have you had any issues or whatever, like, um and he must have, like, opened his mouth, because they don't have access to any of that either, the people who are actually doing the physical, so I mean, pretty sure when you're, like, fighting and shit, they're gonna eventually, someone's gonna find out that, hey, you had a brain aneurysm, you know. But someone continued to let him fight with this history. Either that or it was already kind of, it was like not needed. Information wasn't needed because it's not an issue anymore, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
So
yeah,
they,
yeah. And he said weeks ago. You understand? Weeks ago.
yeah,
What?
yeah,
Look, and let's look back. Let's do something right quick. Frederick Lawson, right? Frederick Lawson. Let's find out when his last fight took place. Frederick Lawson's last fight before Virtual Ortiz was in April 29th, 2023. Drew, that's 9 months ago. Uh, I guess my
mm,
question is when would Frederick Lawson have sustained this aneurysm? Was it during that last fight? Because that was not weeks ago. That was 9 months ago, almost 10 months ago to the date.
it's either that
Would
or
it
it's
have been?
sparring.
It could have been in sparring, but like Mr. Vargas states, he states if a fighter has had an aneurysm, they should fight with headgear. Now, Drew, you know this because I know you go to the gym. I know you spar. My son just barely came back from the gym. I'm sure that he sparred. When you spar, you use headgear because you spar a lot of the time. You spar a lot of the time, and therefore you must protect your head at all costs because the last thing you want to do is sustain any kind of unnecessary injury without any kind of opportunity to make that fight count and or receive any kind of recompense. So my question is when did he receive the kind of injury that would lead to an aneurysm a few weeks prior to the fight? And of course, if you have sustained any kind of injury uh, a few weeks prior to the fight, that does lead one to believe it's in sparring. But you have to ask yourself, Drew, this was not a fight for a belt. This guy
Mm,
is a journeyman for the most part, an unheralded, unknown journeyman. He must have known that he was going up against the favorite fighter, the favorite
yeah,
promotion fighter. Um, do you think he would have gone with the fighter in sparring balls to the wall to the
to
point
the
that he would have hurt himself to prepare for a fight that likely all the odds were against him? Like, I have
man.
to ask, who was he sparring? And maybe that's a very good question. Where does
Mm,
Frederick Lawson uh, train and against whom? Because I'm not trying to say he can't sustain any kind of cerebral or arterial harm on sparring. I'm just asking, what would have been the purpose to take that kind of punishment uh, in order to fight a fight that you were likely gonna lose? It just doesn't
yeah,
make sense.
yeah. No, he it's a sticky situation because they gotta. I can't just say, "Oh yeah, it's this guy's fault, that guy's fault," because I mean, this is the thing though. There's so many angles I can come at this, you
Yeah,
know, and there's the angle where Tony Weeks, you know, I can probably give him the credit and be like, "Hey, he probably seen this dude fucking just black out real quick and just go back into like, you know, like while mid punch." You know, so there's that, and then there's also, you know, what history, like what the hell was Frederick Lawson doing before this, and is it true? Like we don't know if any of that is true. And honestly, if they can scan his brain again, they can scan his brain, right? And
yeah,
then they can be like, hey, he doesn't have a brain aneurysm, so what the fuck was that? You know, like,
yeah,
so they can totally just prove us all wrong. So I think we gotta take it what it is and say, hey, um, that was just a bad stoppage. You wait till he hits the floor at least.
yeah,
You know, you wait till he hits the floor, or you wait until he gets punched more than two times, right? Like, how
yeah.
many times did he get punched? You know,
Well,
like,
he threw like Virgil Ortiz threw like 6 punches, but Drew, they were blocked. They were blocked.
right? Like, how many of them were back to back, like clear shots? You know,
None.
like none. There were none of them were like. like boom, clean shot, boom, clean shot. It was like maybe a clean shot and then a blocked one and then maybe one more clean shot. Like, bro, like it was just a bad stoppage. And I think maybe wait, we did Weeks tweet before the fight or after?
No, he after when all the controversy was taking place, that's when he decided to address
Mm,
the questions surrounding his stoppage. But here's the thing, Drew. He deleted it. So look, to make this story short, right? This whole commotion short, I anticipate. Well, see, I anticipate that this is just gonna become a bigger issue. But here's the thing, Drew. Last year, when this happened under Tony Weeks' watch, nothing came from it. The sport of boxing has a way of forgetting and forgiving, and there is no consequences. But
mm.
here's the thing: Tony Weeks violated HIPAA.
No,
That's
it sounds like he is. We don't have any proof.
but neither does he.
Neither do they, the prosecutors.
Well, there's this tweet. There's something to trace. Like, where did you get that information? If anybody wants to investigate Drew, they could ask
Mm.
him all of these things and get him to answer these things.
I
There's
think
there's a cause, right?
yeah. No, I'm taking the benefit. I'm not sure if I'm saying it right. If the benefit of the doubt and saying that Tony Weeks has been doing this too long for him to mess up this bad or be this. I don't know what the word is. It's not scandalous, because he's saving a person's life. But um,
But
he's
that's where I disagree, Drew. I mean, if it's true that 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 Frederick Lawson was hurt or had that kind of severe type of injury, then of course, if the decision to stop that fight would have been one in order to spare the life of the fighter, then okay.
but in what way would it benefit Tony Weeks withholding this information? In what way?
I don't know, Drew, but
Just to save another person's life. That's it. He's still getting paid. I think there's no solid reason for Tony Weeks to
but Drew, but
viciously.
what was the reason? But what was? Yeah, no, you're right. You're right there. But what was the reason for Tony Weeks having stopped Ismael Barroso from becoming the champion at 140 last year against Roddy Romero?
That's where you got me. I have no idea.
Well,
you
Drew,
know?
the fact is, Rolly Romero was losing a fight on the PBC, the Money Team Mayweather Promotions fight. They couldn't
Mm,
afford to let an opportunity for a belt
right,
to go slipping past their hands to an unknown Venezuelan that's 42 years of age. They couldn't
right.
afford that. So that was
Yeah,
corruption.
yeah.
What I'm saying is
That
this,
looks like more corruption. Yeah,
yeah, that one I think is completely corrupt, but
yeah.
this one I think it's one uh,
Controversial.
uh it's just
Uh,
completely inept. Just
what's yeah.
no wonder professional. He's too long in the tooth in the game. He no longer knows how to do his sport professionally, manage it correctly.
What's
Um,
the right word? It's not controversial because it just left a bad taste in our mouth. The fight did. Um, like,
incompetent.
yeah, incompetent. Like, really, just because I'm not trying to be vicious, like too vicious with words. You know,
Well, I
incompetent.
think incompetent is a good one, Drew. Just because there is competency, that means you know how to do something right, and incompetent means you don't know how to do that thing right anymore. I think Tony Wees has one proven that he is corruptible, and secondly that now even when he tries to do the right thing, he is incompetent.
Well,
Um,
if you think about like, because this fight was just was just like, damn, bro, like you heard there's an aneurysm, like, okay, it's hard to back up weeks from the last fight. I like the Barroso versus Romero fight. I can't back him up right there. Like, that's really suspicious there.
very,
Like
very.
why, like why, and then there's also a thing like, man, he's also been doing this for how many years? Like, what if he's just trying to cash out on his career and just getting paid out, and maybe this was retirement money right here. You know,
Yeah.
so you never
Uh,
know.
yeah. Let's read a couple of these messages. I know we've been having a very chatty commentary section tonight, and we
Mhm.
really do appreciate that. Um, Mr. Adam Hurley starts off by saying, "Who do you guys think is the best 140 fighter?" Drew, who's your pick at 140?
Right now, I would have to say, man, it's a toss up between Tio
Haney.
and fuck, man. I guess Haney, but I was gonna say Matthias. I was gonna say Matthias to be honest.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but I would have to say Matthias because of his style. Like I'm gonna need Haney to knock him out, or not knock him out, but like knock him out like out of the, you know, get his belt. Um,
Mhm.
beat him, however, in what whichever way. If he does that, then I'm gonna say Haney by a mile. But it's
By a
just
mile, wow. Well, I
yeah,
would say,
because
uh,
of his style. The styles, dude, like Teal's in trouble, man. Like
yeah.
he struggles against that style. So you know,
Yeah, well, I would just say, based off, between the resume of both of these fighters, yeah, of course, you're gonna have to go, well, Haney and Teofimo Lopez. But if you
mhm,
compare the fighters, like I don't like to triangulate, but
mhm.
uh, Josh Taylor became undisputed,
Yep,
beating Regis Prograis,
he moved up.
and then Teofimo Lopez destroyed
I know.
Josh Taylor. Um,
Yeah.
so I would say, if you put Teofimo Lopez against Regis Prograis, think about it. What do you see happening in that fight? I mean, obviously it's going to be a
Who
different fight.
knows, dude? Honestly, like I don't know who Tio is now. Like I'm
Yeah,
so like I like him though. It's just
he's a good
like
kid.
and that's why that has what has garnered all his like all of his attention, you know, like he's so man, he really got the crowd against him, and then next thing you know, like he got the crowd against him by what he's saying. It's
Yeah.
not really, you know, and he did it like a magic trick, bro. Like he goes, I'm gonna get my own fans against me, and then I'm gonna prove them wrong. Like, dude, like that's some slick shit, especially
Yeah.
like how mentally off he sounds. Like it's like, dude, you really just faked everyone out, man. Like I don't know what you're capable of. Like you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
I'm never betting a fight where Tio's fighting in. Like never in my life.
Because you don't know what you're gonna get.
You never know.
Yeah, no,
So
that's true. I really do think that, of course, Matthias is the black sheep of it all. But to tell
hmm
you the truth, Matthias's resume. Look, if you go, depending on what you look at in Matthias's resume, right? Matthias's resume. If you take the last 5 or 6 fighters that he's faced, for the most part, they were all undefeated and they had a record of like 100 wins uh,
hmm
to like one loss, right? Between the last 5 or 6 fighters that he faced. So he's taking on as the champion the toughest number 1 spots. But they also turn out to be unaccomplished fighters that have racked up wins against nobodies, and they really have never achieved any greater success past being a first place mandatory for the IBF for Matthias, right? Um,
Yep.
but but obviously he's a knockout artist. So the way that I see it is this: Subriel Matthias, if you put him up there with the number 1 contenders in his division, uh, irrespective of who they are, he will knock him out. So he's
Who?
definitely levels above them. We just have to see him prove himself against the best out there. And Ryan Garcia, even though Subriel Matias keeps calling him out, Ryan Garcia is not that guy. Teofimo Lopez, Josh Taylor,
Did
Regis
you
Progra, those guys are.
did you guys talk about Ryan Garcia previously or no? Huh?
No,
Okay.
this is our very first show of this year, Drew.
Okay.
I wanted to address quite a few things, but we ended up just focusing on Tony Weeks' controversy because the more I
Mhm.
dug into it, the more I discovered, whoa,
Yeah.
this is a greater story than people are even addressing.
Right.
Nobody, the boxing boys,
Because we're
uh,
talking about multiple fights.
And
You
not
know,
only
that's
multiple fights, no, I'm taking into consideration everything. Like
yeah,
nobody's looking at the violation of HIPAA or the divulgement of information or what it means for a fighter, for a referee to get access to crucial information that they
right.
should not have because they will it compromise the way that they judge. Nobody's talking about those things
Yeah,
because I
nobody's
decided
talking
to
about it.
dig deep past the superficial.
Yeah, yeah, nobody's talking about what the process, like people like in the field and looking at the whole process. We're not really hearing about people like saying like what the process is and how it should be. Everyone's kind of like, especially like everyone on Golden Boy side, everyone's kind of like get their mouth shut. Like it's kind of weird.
And actually, that's good that you brought up Golden Boy because one of the last messages that was actually sent out by our broadcaster who is not joining us, the homie Ricky, and he states that Tony Weeks exposed boxing and Golden Boy. Well,
Mm.
uh, homie Ricky, yes, he did. He exposed
Dang,
himself first off. He
he
exposed
did.
the boxer. He exposed NSAC, the Nevada State Commission for
I
Athletics.
think I think they're doing everything on their part. Like they're like the government, bro. Like
Yeah,
they don't mess around. I think it's, somebody next after that process, somebody messed up right there. You
yeah.
know.
But
Yeah.
Drew, I guess just to to make this simple. Okay, uh, the NSAC is the Nevada State Athletic Commission, right?
Mm.
They're only gonna sanction a fight that to take place in the state because it is the government. Uh, Depending on what kind of information the fighter provides them. If the fighter goes to different doctors until it finds a doctor that is willing to, maybe lie or manipulate the data in order to say that the fighter is capable of fighting. If the NSAC takes that information, they're only acting on the information that the fighter is providing unless they have access to all three different medical reports. I'm sure that the fighter is only going to provide the medical reports that suits him and allowing himself to fight. Why? Because if the fighter fights, he gets paid. The
Mm.
NSAC is not going to have access to all of the medical information. They're not going to have access to all three or four different, neurological reports. They're going to only take the information that the fighter provided them that allows them to sanction that fight. So I don't think I can blame too much information on the decision of making these fighters happen on the NSAC as much as the fighter that's providing them the information that the NSAC is acting on to approve the fight. But somebody there knew that they did not want Frederick Lawson to fight past a certain degree of uh, of uh, of violence because his life may have been at risk.
Yeah,
So
help me out. Can
yeah,
you name another situation like this besides the two that we
no,
already named?
no, I've never look.
No.
Do referees stop fights for medical reasons? Yes, they do,
Yeah,
but they've
like
never
but
used that, right?
yeah,
They've never used an excuse of
like
saying I acted on the benefit of the fighter
yeah,
because I got privileged information. They've never said that
right.
because because that is uh, I think that is corruptible. I think that is corruption.
Like
Um,
not unless he looks messed up, like he got a hematoma or something on his head, or you know,
exactly.
like we need better camera angles of Frederick Lawson's face, just so we can like be fair to Tony Weeks and be fair to everyone else, because it's like we're not getting enough information, man. And everything's just like weird. How it all played out.
Yeah. Well, actually, I did address that because when I was reading the guideline to refereeing and boxing, just like about an hour ago or so, I end up I did read the part where if a referee uh, figures that there is some kind of harm taking place on a particular fighter, and if he needs to have a second opinion, he can halt the fight and bring the the physician to the corner and have
Hmm.
him, you know, give his medical opinion on whether or not a fighter should take place. Um, And it's hard to really call the
Mhm.
medic over to the corner because there's no physical harm. There was no laceration, there was no blood, so he can't really call the medic and say, "Hey, do you think this
Yeah.
guy looks bad for you?" Because
Yeah,
there
well
was no indication, right?
the ref will do that sometimes. No, like Doc, you know, like he'll be like that sometimes. Like I'm just not sure if it was a golden boy card or what, but I've seen that before, like where like the ref is like, "Hey man, this guy's getting messed up, Doc. Where you at?" You know?
Yeah,
But I think I've seen that a handful of times. But that's a good point because that physician should actually, maybe that person can have some of your records, you know, so he can refer to them, you know, like because he's the one taking your vitals and all this shit, you know, like on site, you know, and
yeah,
like maybe him, but I might be like maybe he's the one that has access to this stuff, but
yeah.
you just like I still don't know, you know,
I
it's
don't
crazy.
know either. But there was another guideline in the referee rules that states if you believe a fighter is taking type of punishment. And if you think that the ropes are the only thing that's holding up a fighter from being knocked down or knocked out, then you can actually stop the fight, count it as a standing 8 count. And that was one of the things that I actually stated that could have been one of the considerations for Tony Weeks. Because guess what? Frederick Lawson was pushed to the ropes and was taking a volley of punches, but they were being blocked. But here's the thing, though, Drew, they never gave him a standing 8 count because under the impression that the ropes were holding them up. So Tony Weeks did everything bad under the book. Um, let's let's see what other things. So I guess maybe you think it's hard to say who our best fighter is at 140, Mr. Adam Hurley. Maybe you
Mm.
can give us your opinion. Maybe the homie Ricky and Vince
At
and
140.
the Mexican G can tell us who they think their 140 fighter is. I think it's Teofimo Lopez, and then after that, Devin Haney, and then after that, well, of course, Matthias. Because no way am I gonna give that to Rody Romero. But
Yeah.
let's see what the homie Ricky states. He states the question is why is Tony Weeks privy to this information? Also, why the f is Tony playing doctor in the ring? Yeah, Tony. He continues by saying, "Fire Toy, Toy, Toy Weeks for incompetence." Drew
Mhm.
Hopton said hi. Mr. Vince Vargas, he reminds me to not chew no more big league chew for me because every time I chew blue colored gum, I think that my tongue is turning blue and I'm gonna die. Um, the Drew wanted to get in. Homie Ricky states, "What's up, Drew?" Uh, he's gonna hop in the computer. B Hop retired at age 50. Wow, wow. The Mexican G states Tony Weeks is a damn fool. I agree with you, the Mexican G, and Happy New Year to you, amigo. I hope that your new year, your Feliz Año Nuevo, has started off surrounded by family and friends. That you have aspirations to make this year a great one for yourself. If you have any resolutions for this year, the Mexican G, let us know what you plan on working on this year. I stated that I want to fix 2 low rider cars this year and drink enough water every day until my urine turns clear because it's always usually the color of pumpkins. But those are my 2 New Year's resolutions. If you want to let us know the Mexican G what your resolutions are, let us know. We'd really like to know. We'll support you and we'll remind you every time you hop on that you got something to work on so that we don't forget, so that we continue to stay active in resolving what we want to work on this year. So thank you very much. And you know what, son? I'm gonna see if my son comes over here and pops a popper in your behalf, the Mexican G. Um, let's see what goes on.
I know he
Vince
told me.
Vargas says Weeks is cheeks.
Did you read the one? Did you read weeks should have weeks to leave?
Yeah. That's a Mexican G. Now he's funny, man. Weeks
uh
should have weeks to leave. Yeah, no,
it's
I think.
hilarious.
See, Drew, if anybody even delves into this matter more thoroughly, it really should lead to not only a suspension but a retirement of Tony Weeks. It really should.
Dude,
This,
I think he's made enough money. He's gonna retire, bro. He's like, I don't give a fuck.
He's just destroying everything while before he goes.
Well, I mean, he's put enough. He's been involved in some great fights, and I think he's done good. I mean, he just like imagine being at the end of your refereeing career, and you know it's still gonna be the last one, and you hear a bunch of BS. It's like I can care less. Like I'm done. You
Yeah,
know, like yeah, he's not getting locked up. I mean,
but it's
shit.
it's worse. It's not like in one. I think there was corruption. Two, and complete incompetence. And three, look at my icon, Drew. It's
It's
Badu
nothing.
Jack.
I don't see it.
You don't see my icon on the screen?
Let me see. Hold on.
Okay.
Oh yeah. No,
Oh, okay. Well, you
that
remember
is
that
just him.
Badu Jack fought uh the Gale, right?
Yeah.
Remember how Badu Jack had a cut about his forehead, running down from his forehead down to his nose that was like 6 inches long and about 1 inch wide, and it was bloody, and it looked
Looked like his
like
bone was exposed.
yeah, exactly. That was refereed by Tony Weeks. So how are you gonna take a
Mm,
fight that was one of the most gruesome and violent fights that you've ever seen, and you allowed that to go on for 6 rounds after the guy is bleeding so much, and then you get this fighter to throw 6 punches, and then you stop the fight, and they're
I
blocked.
know.
Come on, that's inconsistency now. It's incompetence, inconsistency, and corruption. Uh, yeah, Drew, he has to go. Like
Yeah.
the Mexican cheesesteaks. Tony Weeks is a damn fool, and he's got weeks to leave. Yeah, I agree. Mr. Vince Vargas states Week moved by Weeks, and confidential information was
we need
leaked by Weeks.
we need
Um,
Skip Bayless back. Or not Skip
Skip
Bayless, my
Bayless.
bad.
Yeah, no, and actually, one of
Is
the
that his name?
questions. Skip Bayless.
Yeah, that's
Wait,
his name, right?
the white guy?
Oh shit. I
Wait,
knew
wait,
I was
wait.
gonna.
Skip Bayless, the guy that worked with Shannon, the Shay Shay.
Yeah, I got it
Oh
wrong.
my god.
I got the
Oh my
names
goodness,
wrong.
man.
Oh man, dude, what's his name? He just retired. He's this black referee.
Are
He
you
just
talking about
retired.
Rich? Not Richard Steele.
What's his name?
Yeah, 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 yeah,
And
yeah.
he has his eyes wide open. He's like, oh, oh, like
Oh, goodness, the comedian guy. Um.
no. I mean, yeah, but he's been around for a minute though. Like I think he just retired last week. But
Uh,
if anyone can comment who that was.
well, you know what the funny thing is? He retired from the Nevada State Commission
Oh,
refereeing.
okay.
He said
Mm.
he retired from Nevada, but he never said he retired from the sport. So I was like, why are they focusing on Nevada? Like, did he only referee in that state? Or I don't know. But yeah, I know who you're talking about. Homie Ricky likely knows. Uh, Ricky, who is the guy, the referee that he makes those funny faces, and he sticks his eyeballs like, oh God, oh.
There was
Yeah, let me know who that guy
Kenny
is.
Bayless. There we go. He just retired. Yeah,
Oh, Kenny Bayless.
I said Skip Bayless.
Skip,
uh, yeah.
that's hilarious.
That's
So moving on, the homie Ricky states Errol Spence said, if you're born a man, you can only fight men. If you're born with a dick, you should fight another person with
mm,
one. I don't think he ever said that, but I think the reason why the homie Ricky wanted to bring that up is because I've been wanting to talk about one of the most controversial uh, things to happen in the sport of boxing in the longest time. Drew, do you know that transgender, or better yet, transsexual boxing has been approved by the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, and USA Boxing, and that WBA and WBC are in disapproval of transgender boxing, and they only will allow transsexual boxing on the Olympic Committee and on USA Boxing? Did you hear about that?
no, man.
Well, I
That like I'm not sure if I'm thinking of it right, but that's horrible, right? Like that's the consensus, right?
um so no, so no, it's not a consensus. It's not all of the organizations agreeing on things. In fact, there's a disagreement between the WBC and the WBA and USA Boxing and IOC.
Whoa.
No, because the
USA
International
boxing too, huh?
Olympic Committee. and USA Boxing, because they work hand in hand, um, is allowing transsexual boxing. Now, uh,
That's insane.
transsexual is different from transgender.
Mm.
Transgender is when there's a sex that identifies as another sex, uh, and they want to be treated as that opposite sex, of which differs from the one that they're born. But they don't necessarily have to take any kind of measures to affirm their sexual gender identity. Like, for
Mm.
example,
I got
and
it.
I'll put myself
I got
as
it. No, I'm just kidding.
okay, okay, yeah, yeah. But then there's transsexuals. Transsexuals actually have to undergo medical procedures, which include hormone therapy, replacement, and
Mm.
exclusion, and they
And what's
have
that
to
called?
undergo affirmative surgery. So that means a female will undergo a type of cosmetic surgery where thereby their sexual organ, which is obviously a vagina, will be replaced by a male organ, which is a penile member, right? And the male side, they must undergo affirmative surgery so that they sever their natural reproductive organs, in this case a penis, and then they will transform it into a vagina. Uh, the
Now, what
Olympic
is that called?
uh, gender affirmative surgery.
Okay, that's
So
considered trans. That's a trans, right?
trans, yes,
Okay.
trans. Not to be confused with like transgender, different thing, right? Now,
Oh man. Okay.
so the International Olympic Committee is allowing men turned women and women turned men through surgery to fight uh, their counterparts that were born biologically as male or female, as long as one, they go rigorous testing for hormonal levels, in particular testosterone and estrogen, to determine whether or not these men turned female and female turned men have the same kind of hormonal levels as the sex that they want to be, so that they can fight the sex that they want to be. And secondly, they require them to undergo the surgery. So it's a
Mm.
very hard, uh, it's a dedication on the part of the fighter that requires them to go through it. There's no half stepping. There's no
Yeah.
pussyfooting. If you are a man that turned into a woman through surgery and hormones, and you want to fight women that were born women, you have to, for the lack of better words, Drew,
How
and I
many?
don't want to
But
sound offensive, you have to cut it off.
yeah. But okay, this is the thing though. Uh, like, there's not a lot of trans people out here like that want to box. Like, like what I'm trying to say is like there's not a lot of heavyweights walking around at 6'6", and like there's very few 6'6" dudes that want to box, right? So like, what about for them? What about someone who's a heavyweight in their division, and there have like there's only so many of those. I don't want to say it wrong. I was gonna say transvestite. That's right. That's the horrible way of saying it, right?
Well, yeah. Well, so yeah, no. Well, yeah, I believe that's just horrible. Just because I don't know if maybe that's just a word that they do not prefer. But yeah, you're right. A transgender is more like a transvestite, if I'm not mistaken, because
Okay.
that just means they vest, which means they clothe
Got
themselves
you.
and the clothing.
Oh,
So yeah, no,
got
I
you.
think it's easier if you just look at it like that. There's transsexual, and then there's transvestite.
Yeah. Okay. But
So
you know
no,
what I
you're
mean?
onto it. You're onto it.
Like how, um, like man, it's gonna be so hard to find an opponent, right? Like, man, you gotta like to fight someone with at your stature that cut it off as well. Um, like imagine just having someone like it's just gonna be too hard to find opponents, bro. Like really, and like I'm so lost for words, but like you can actually. like I'm hearing a lot of interviews, right? Like on TVV, and
Hmm.
there's a lot of girls who decide to like who started boxing like 3 years ago and they're about to be world champs. Like I think we're gonna see that. We're gonna be like, hey, I started boxing last year and I'm gonna be a world champion this year. Like something about that sounds unsafe. Like you shouldn't. Boxing is boxing still. Doesn't matter at what stage you do it at. You're gonna get decked in the face, and your body is either gonna, your body's either acclimated and you treat your body well, and But I just feel like yeah, I was gonna say they need to do it in the amateur level too, but you said USA Boxing is doing it as well, right?
Uh, yeah. So USA Boxing, and the IOC are in agreement because they're basically like,
Mm.
if you follow through the steps of USA Boxing all the way through, you will reach the Olympic level. But yeah, so here's the thing, homie, Drew. Um, they need these guys won't sanction men that just call themselves women to fight natural biologically born women. They won't allow that. They require them to go through the process of
Right.
affirming that they are the opposite sex. So they're telling him, you
Hmm.
have to cut it off. You see, this is what I'm saying.
Hmm.
If these fighters are going to want to fight under those conditions, for the Olympics or for USA Boxing, they're
That's
gonna
expensive.
have to go all the way through. There is no half stepping. If you really believe you are a woman, a man trapped in a woman's body, uh, you're gonna have to prove it by going all the way. See, so in that sense, I agree with that uh, with that decision, because at least you're saying, you know what, if that's the case, guess what, you're gonna have to make sure that you clip it so that you no longer have
Yeah.
the hormones, the hormonal levels of a man, uh, taking advantage of women that don't have those same hormones. Like for example, we know that testosterone is a hormone that allows for muscle building, energy levels, uh, violence, and the better bone density. That's what makes men, right? Strength, musculature, skeletal
I don't think like.
composition, things of that sort. Women, since they have estrogen, uh, their metabolism is different. They cannot create as much muscle, although they do have a certain level of testosterone, like men also have of estrogen. But nonetheless, when you have the unbalanced levels of different hormones on the opposite sex, you have an advantage. So they're saying, one, you have to cut it off or transform your reproductive organs, and secondly, you have to take consistent uh, hormones to continue to evolve your body into that sex that you're trying to become. Like for example, here's the thing, Drew. Uh, what men that want to turn into women, not only do they have to cut that part off, and when you cut off the testes, you obviously cut off the uh, ability to produce testosterone, right? Your sexual libido suffers as a result of that. You no longer have that uh, excitement, that virility that only men have. And then you start replacing that by more feminine traits. So they're more pacific, more unbalanced. And there's a lot of different physical characteristics besides, men developing boobs, wider hips, and, more of a baby uh, plush texture with less facial hair growing over. Those are the things that are physically going to happen to a man once they start taking hormones that are found in the body of a female. But that's not the only thing, though. When you start changing the genetic composition of a male or a female, besides the physical transformation, the the internal transformation start changing their mentality, their chemical imbalances, so that men start becoming more irate, having not necessarily what they would call men menstruation, but they just start going through a lot of different mental changes that have tested in some individuals that have done this type of transformation. They start becoming more suicidal, and they start having a lot of depression. So it's not, some studies have revealed that it's not safe for these individuals to go through that. So what I'm trying to say, Drew, is this: it's there's not going to be that many fighters that are willing to affirm their gender by these surgical procedures and
Or
by the
BBL.
continuous rigorous dedication of taking hormones that will transform their genetic makeup and their physiology. It's just hard and expensive, and they will go through a lot of mental and physical changes that are not so easy uh, to undergo, because it's just so different to what your body is made of. I mean, hormones of females on men or on women could lead to osteoporosis. Like, for example, some of the hormones that women have in their body when they're at the levels of women on men will lead to a deterioration of the osseous material. In other words, the bones over time, because of these hormones, are going to become more brittle, because they are going to lose bone material. They're more susceptible to fractures. That's just one of the things. Osteoporosis is a medical condition in which the bones become brittle and fragile from the loss of tissue, typically as a result of hormonal changes or the deficiency of calcium or vitamin D, according to Oxford Dictionary. That's just one of the consequences that can happen from taking these hormones that can change the makeup of the individual. And that's not only it, Drew. One of the side effects of some of these hormones, in particular estrogen and anti-androgen, is that men can develop breast tenderness, breast enlargement, feminization, hot flashes, sexual dysfunction, infertility, and of course the mentioned osteoporosis. So what I'm trying to tell you, Drew,
Hey, so they're gonna be in mid fight. They're like, man, I'm feeling hot and bothered right now.
imagine, 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 Drew. And so when you look at this, what I'm trying to say is this: the fighter that wants to fight under these conditions is going to sacrifice so much. And in that sense, I respect that, right? But here's
uh,
the thing, Drew. It gets a little worse, because now you're probably like saying, "Oh, come on! They still have the skeletal structure of a man, and they're still going to have the advantages of
I think
musculature." And
I think
here's,
they need to go through psyche checks first before they do this for a professional, like for a living. Uh,
uh-huh.
they're representing sanctions like the WBC and all that. Like they are really irrational, bro. And I think it has to do with the hormones or whatever they take. Like it's not normal how they act. Most of them, And I don't know. I just feel like um there's so many things that are going to go wrong with this, bro. Like I think this is the only sport doing this, right? This whole transgender thing. Um and we're going to be the only this sport is going to be the only sport to really expose the issues with that,
Wow,
like I think
that's
it
so
will.
true.
I think this is going to be this is really the only sport that's going to expose the limitations of boxing, because uh the truth will come out. And I think you're really, in reality, you're stepping in the ring and you're doing a full workout with another opponent. And I think it's really the only sport that exposes you. I think it's like there's transgender basketball, there's transgender
Yeah,
everything nowadays.
yeah,
And you can't really tell with MMA, because I mean you can kick. There's some chicks who look good and they have a nice lower leg body and they kick like a mother, you know? And that right there is enough to knock a dude out. We will never find out whether man strength's gonna take over. You know, that's only boxing. Boxing is gonna expose this transgender thing. Like it's gonna make it look horrible. It's not a good idea. Like it really, it tests your whole entire body. It tests, like literally it tests every single thing that you do to your body. You know, like MMA, you do one thing, great thing at a high level, it's gonna take you far. You know, with boxing, like it's really how well you take care of your body, and in this case, it's how well the surgery was done on your body, and that shouldn't be the case. You know, that like somebody else's work on you shouldn't give you the ability to, you know, win fights. I mean, what if there's gay boxers, bro? What if there's gay boxers? There was gay boxers before, but what if they decide to get in the ring with women now because they can't win a championship at the men level? Bro, that dude's gonna kill someone. He's gonna kill someone. And I guarantee you, bro, like it's gonna expose it, bro. It's gonna expose it because it's gonna it's gonna test the truth of your body. Like it's
Yeah,
gonna
that's a great point, Drew. That is actually a great point.
you know, think of
That
another
I
sport.
think
Think of another sport that's capable of exposing this whole this whole transgender thing. It's really just boxing. You can't
well, under
really.
the circumstances, no, boxing is going to be the one to expose it because, contrary to other sports where perhaps they can try to pass the same kind of allowances and permissions to fight under these conditions, like let's say tennis, a male fighter. I mean, a male tennis player decides to change his sex through gender affirming surgery. It's tennis. Tennis versus tennis. I
It's
mean, maybe
different,
the man is always going to win, but guess what? There is no subjugation of physical harm to your opponent, right?
right?
In boxing, yeah, no, this is life and death. I've always said this is life and death.
I
And
hope
in
no one
fact,
dies. I hope no one
exactly.
dies.
And in fact, remember at the last year, the very last show that we made, the homie Ricky and I don't think you were on there, Drew. I mentioned that one of the fights of the year happened to be on the undercard of Naoya Inoue when he fought Marlon Tapales. The
Hmm.
co-main event was a fighter Suzuki versus Sanaguchi, and I
Hmm.
said that that was one of the fights of the year, and that I've never seen a fight as unbelievable as that one
Hmm.
because there was knockdowns, people, one guy beating the other guy in all rounds, and then the other guy just coming up based off knockdowns. And here's what happened: at the last minute, one of the fighters stops the other one, or something to that effect, or maybe he made it out. But nonetheless, as soon as that fighter made it to the corner, he started to seize. He started to twitch. He started to lose control of his limbs and starts dropping over. He starts going through a seizure. He starts going
Hmm.
through convulsions. He's in
Right.
the hospital with
What
a
if he?
brain bleed, an
I mean,
aneurysm developed by the harm subjected to him, and now his life is at risk of being lost because he's in a state of coma. Now,
mhm.
this is what our sport of boxing does,
Like you
and
don't
I
see that
believe
with
you're right.
women. You don't see that with women, right? They don't punch hard enough for you to like for women to like put them each other through that type of BS. You know, send each other to the hospital type of stuff. Like you never really hear that from women's, bro. Like you're gonna, you know, like you're gonna see a woman with no punching power fight another quote unquote woman, and she's gonna feel that manpower, bro. I guarantee you. It's just gonna be it's physics. That's what it is. It's physics. And it's not gonna equal out to a good uh like it's not gonna be feasible, bro. Like there's gonna be issues, bro. And they're gonna be like, hey, there's too many fucking problems. Like we have two people in comas. We have people right now in the hospital because you passed this trans shit. Like
Yeah,
it watch. I guarantee you, bro. Like they're gonna have to stop this shit eventually. Boxing is not the sport to play with when it
yeah.
comes down to transgender. You can
I
do that with
agree.
the
I
other
agree.
ones. Yeah.
Um, and just to wrap up that part, Drew. Uh, when at first glance you start thinking, well, if these guys really want to beat up on these women, or or women want to beat up on these men to test themselves, and they have to go through the sacrifice of really changing their sex through surgery and taking all these hormones on a monthly basis, well, then that's a good sacrifice on them, because again, I just mentioned all the reasons for why it's going to be very difficult for them to do so: the chemical transformations, the risk of men developing breast cancer, brittle
Oh
bones.
my God, bro. You okay? Never mind. I thought you said that, but I literally had the word boycott in my mind right now, and
Oh, you
somebody,
read that?
yeah, and somebody had already commented that. I was like, maybe we should boycott.
Well, yeah. So Mr. Vince Vargas says, wonder if fans will boycott boxing like they did at Bud Light. Um, I think they will, Mr. Vargas.
And I don't even think we need to boycott. There's not enough. There wouldn't be enough interest in that. I
So
mean,
so yeah, so the IOC and USA Boxing actually admit that it's likely about less than 1% of all fighters in the world that they know that would even join a league, because it's so
oh
random and rare for a fighter to meet those conditions that they're imposing in order to fight under the sanctioned rules of IOC and USA Boxing. So they do acknowledge, Drew, that all
yeah,
it is an open door for these fighters, should there ever be these fighters that, one, meet that
but
criteria, and two, find similar foes, which are going to be rare. But I would believe that that the fans will start boycotting once
mhm,
the very first female fighter or male fighter,
mhm,
depending on who happens. I would believe the male fighters are mostly going to hurt women much more
yeah,
easily than the other way around when somebody gets seriously hurt. And then the lawsuits start to present themselves and all of those things. So,
yeah,
yes, Mr. Vargas, I think the fans not only will boycott, I actually believe there will be some serious lawsuits if somebody gets seriously harmed.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and dude, like if you look at these, because they'll have like midgets fight right sometimes, and they'll actually sanction them in certain states like Philadelphia, Florida, like they're all legal over there. I didn't know that, but they have these midgets fighting. They still go through like these physicals, and they can't fight each other unless they're like a certain amount of weight apart from each other, because there's big midgets and there's smaller midgets, and they're even doing the things right. Like they're even saying, hey, I know both of you guys are midgets, but you're bigger than him. You got 30 pounds on him. You got to
yeah,
weigh 15, 10 pounds close to his weight,
yeah,
and these guys are like have different size limbs, different, because they're born the way they were born, but and there's a difference between the way you were born and trying to change the way you were born. So
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. No, it's fair. It's fair. And so, yeah, I do anticipate that not only will there be boycotts, I believe there will be even lawsuits eventually.
yeah.
So let's see what else our listeners state. Um, Mr. Vince Vargas, he presents a very nice picture of Tony Weeks looking very
Very
handsome and
handsome.
looking into the distance, and he says, "Is Weeks better than Richard Steele?"
I
um,
don't know who Steele is. Which one's that guy?
yeah, I think Richard Steele is the guy who did a lot of fights for Mayweather, and
Okay.
actually, I think he did a lot of fights for um, Manny Pacquiao, uh,
Mm.
or maybe no, maybe no. I
I
think
gotta
I may
see a
be
picture.
mistaken.
I gotta see a pic, but you don't have to.
Yeah, no,
So
but we've seen him. Richard Steele is a legend. He's been around.
yeah.
I think he's retired a long time ago because I haven't seen him in a very long time. But I'm not too sure how to answer that question, Mr. Vargas. But I don't think Weeks is better than Richard Steele, at least not right now.
Did you
Um,
see Vince Vargas's comment? The BBL.
oh yeah, I was getting to that. I was getting to that. Um,
Oh man.
so let's see. Mr. Vargas states. Speed put a picture on his profile and professional.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Um,
The Homie Ricky states all contestants in the event were subject to full medical examinations and were cleared by medical experts to compete without restrictions. Yep. There is also no evidence to support that Weeks was informed of the details surrounding Lawson's license approval, which would be a HIPAA violation. Speed put up a picture on his profile, unprofessional, LOL. And I wish the Mexican G is saludos, happy New Year. We'll pop a popper for you in a bit. Actually, you know what? I'm not too sure if uh if the Mexican G is on the line or not, but I'm gonna pop a popper for him, and also for you, Drew, as a happy
Where's
New
that?
Year. Popper.
Oh,
Let me show you what a popper is.
that yeah.
This is a popper.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's hilarious.
So we're gonna pop this for you.
All
Okay,
right.
here we go. Pop this for G. Make sure that it lands on top of me or whatever. Make it look all like it's New Year again. Here we go. Two. Ah, come on, you missed me. Woo!
There you go.
Yeah. So that's for you, Drew, and the Mexican G. Happy New Year. I hope it's
Happy New Year.
a great one. Yeah, yeah. I hope we make the best of it. Drew, do you have any resolutions for this year?
Um, Man, honestly, um, I'm kind of heading towards that resolution. Like, I just want to do what I'm already doing consistently.
Hmm.
I think, like, I had a kickstart last year. Like, I'm glad we started this. Because it's something that we can, regardless of what happens, like in the boxing world. We can. I mean, we can always talk about boxing on this. Like, we've always had stuff to talk about, and I think this is like a game changer.
Yeah, yeah.
Because we never
Um,
we go weeks without talking about this shit, and then boom, we that's why we're in your living room just talking for 3 hours because we don't have chances like this to hash it out, not hash it out, but air it all out.
You know what? I like that, Drew. I like that. We rarely ever get to reconnect, and I always tell the homie Ricky because I do like your opinions a lot. I believe sometimes when the homie Ricky and I we get together and we host a show just between himself and I, we butt heads a lot. And it leads to some type of conflict, not necessarily a disrespectful one, but I myself have ventured out to become more pacific, more peaceful, more understanding, and I really don't like it when we get into those type of disagreements. We never really gotten into it bad, but I always sense a different chemistry, a different balance when you're there to give us your opinion, which is always
Yeah,
like between both of ours, between his
yeah.
and mine, and it's just a lighter, more funner one because sometimes the homie Ricky and I we take ourselves, I guess, too serious.
It's a
um
competitive spirit.
yeah, to some extent, yeah, but I don't really want to be too competitive on opinions. Like, I agree with him. Our opinions really aren't that important. And in fact, that's one of the reasons why the homie Ricky doesn't like to have much lives. He's like, I don't care about doing this. I don't care about my opinion on this matter. And I'm like, man, but I like to do it for our listeners. I like to read our listeners' comments. I like to see what they have to say. Because, like, for example, Drew, check this out. Check this out. This is what Mr. Vince Vargas wrote. He says, man, that's crazy news for trans fighters. Check this one out. I wonder how the low blows come into play.
Damn.
Can you believe that, bro? Listen, low blows and transgendered boxing. That's hilarious.
Like someone who was like uneducated before you educated me right now, then I would have been like, ha, 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 like, but now I know
Like,
now.
that's
Now I
unfair.
know.
You're gonna hit her and there's nothing there, but you're gonna hit him and it's gonna hurt.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was thinking. I was like, whoa, fuck, that's not fair.
Yeah.
Talk
Or
about,
if you
talk
don't want
about,
your
huh,
testes to hurt, cut him off. Like the homie
uh,
Ricky states.
cut
Goodness,
it off.
cut it off.
You want to? Yeah, that's gonna be like a motto, for the WBC. You want to be a champion? Cut it off.
No, no, no. So here's the thing. This is where I wanted to. Now that you bring it up, the WBC, their philosophy, their practices are different. The WBC is never gonna allow a man turned female to fight a natural biological woman, and they will never allow a female turned male to
Hmm.
ever fight a natural biologically born man. They
But see,
never
that's
do that.
good. That's good then, but at the same time, that's a small number of population. You know,
No, no, no.
extremely
That's
small.
no, I know, but what they're just look. I know it's just a token gesture of inclusivity because, like you said, there's not that many fighters that are gonna meet that criteria, anyways. So it's like really you're just doing it just to say because you're not really gonna ever host any of these events for a significant, meaningful amount. But nonetheless, at least if there ever is gonna be a fight under those conditions, they are saying men turn to women against men turn to women, and women turn men against women turn men, but never against the opposite biologically born gender. And in that case, I agree.
I
I
guess that's
think that's
okay.
fair because I don't mind because one of the things that Mr. Vince Vargas asked is, will the boxing world boycott boxing like they did Bud Light? And I do say yes, they will under those conditions that men turned female are allowed to fight natural born females and vice versa. But if they allow just transgender or transvestite boxers to fight the similar, I don't think people will care. I think, look, especially to the Mexicans and the Mexican Americans, right? We have been used to watching uh, in movies and in wrestling and in comedy those funny actors that are men turned that dress like women. In wrestling, they have las caritas, which are the like the good guys, and then they have the heels, which is los what do they call them in Spanish?
Los
Uh
michis,
los oh,
pantuflas.
los rudos. They call them the rudos. Those are the heels. And then they have los exóticos. And the exóticos are the transsexual ones, the men that dress
What?
like women, right? And
How long have they had this around?
oh, that the AAA, Mexico's wrestling AAA, which is the equivalent of
Oh
WWF. Oh, they've been around forever. They've been doing that for a long time.
no, but the
In
street fight
Mexican
fans.
movies, they have picaros. Picaros is like the naughty movies, and they always have a funny gay guy always doing some funny stuff and acting the part. So in Latin American countries, especially Mexicans, uh, we've accepted that they are part of the culture, and we don't really discriminate. We allow them as long as they entertain us. So I believe if a transsexual or a transvestite fights a similar, we won't care as long as they're violent. What we do care is protecting the fighter. A man should not beat up on a woman, and a woman should not beat up on a man. That
Yeah.
is, I assure you, we will draw the line there. So yes, Mr. Vargas, I believe they will boycott, but I don't believe they'll boycott if the sex that's fighting is fighting a sex under the same conditions and they're not biological. Um, and just to wrap it up, Drew, I'm not too sure what time you're gonna sleep, but I'm just gonna read through a couple of the last few messages. Mr.
Mhm.
Vince Vargas says, "I cannot imagine a transgender heavyweight fighter, mainly minimal weight classes." Yeah, well, who knows? There's probably a couple of huge uh, uh, transsexual fighter people out there. I don't know if it's out of the question. BBL fighters to add weight. Oh
That's a good
goodness.
one. I'm gonna
Yeah,
use
that
that one
is a
later.
great one. I'm telling you, Mr. Vargas was on the road today. He was funny. He was
I'm
funny.
telling. I'm gonna tell people at TVV,
BBL.
but they're not talking about it anymore. I think they get real awkward, because it's a real masculine environment over there. TBV.
Yeah. No, well, these are controversial topics, Drew.
They are.
Um,
Yeah.
they're not. But this is why. Listen, this is why I think our venue, our broadcast, is a good one to hash and consider these topics. Why? Because you and I, we're not discriminatory. Um, we're not racist. We don't discriminate based on sex or color. We are just asking questions and addressing these things as respectfully as
Is
we can knowing that we're not experts, but we love fighters and we care about the sport. That's what we're
Is there
doing.
is there a word for hating, like being racist towards a genre? Is there a
Uh,
word for that? No, you consider
oh,
that
like discriminatory against gender?
okay? Never mind. I
No,
was
no,
like,
no. I don't know
yeah,
what. I don't know. I'm sure there is.
yeah. No, I was like, is there like a word like racist, but for like, or is racist just for race, or is it for? Yeah, it's all good. I'm
Is
not
it
a
like
hater.
transphobic?
I think so, but
Oh, okay.
either way, I just never understood it. I just, like now it's really educating people who are, into boxing and shit. So I'm not sure if that was their mission to like educate people and but I don't know. It
Well,
just doesn't make sense. Like I like what you were saying just right now, like, the men who turn into women fight each other, and then, the women who turn into men will fight each other like that. That makes a lot more sense. And then, yeah, yeah, that makes sense as long as they're near their weight class. And then also like they're having a Team USA, like they're having their own divisions. So now you're gonna have those highly touted prospects coming out, and it's like what's their glamour? Like what you go to the Olympics, you get signed by who? Like who's gonna want you? Like I'm pretty sure, bro. Like I'm thinking about it right now. They're gonna be the misfit fighters. Like I think they're gonna go into misfit fighting, and
dude,
that's the only way they're gonna
bro, you're on a roll, bro.
Yeah, and I'm thinking
Wow,
about it right now. I think they're gonna be misfit fighters. They're not gonna be real fighters. They're gonna be misfit fighters. Like you can still win shit in misfit fighting, but that's really like the only category I can put them in because it's like not fucking fair, man. Like there's every other sport right now that has a championship level for women and men, and
yeah,
then now it's like you want to give boxing a hard time because we're not giving you that division. Like it's like, bro, like they're gonna not they're not gonna find out the hard way because they're fighting their own type of people, so that's the only way for them to like be feasible,
yeah.
like make money, is to
Dude,
be,
bro. I'm not kidding you. You're
yeah,
on a roll. Like
they're gonna
you're
be
on a
misfit
roll.
fighters.
Yeah, no, you're man, you're on it. Like misfit fighting, just because it's a different product, it'll look different. There's gonna
Yeah,
be the lure that they're outsiders, that nobody likes them. They're gonna
yeah,
develop a fan base. The controversies about boycotting, all of those things. Man, you're really on it,
yeah.
man.
I think that they should do that. Like they should do that, and and that's where they can really, because they can really be themselves, like, because to me it's a really masculine sport, whether it's women's or men's side.
Yeah,
Like most women boxers today, even though the women's boxing is growing, like I feel like most women boxers don't like when you like sexualize them. Like I feel like they get pissed, like most of these fighters, or most
yeah,
of these chick fighters, like they're trying to be tough, they're trying to fight, so it's a really masculine, environment. So I think, it, like I think it allows them to express themselves better because it hits a different audience.
yeah.
You got to be YouTube famous, you got to be Instagram famous, and all this. So
Yeah.
all
But you
those
know what,
people,
Drew? I won't necessarily say that completely because I know there's fighters out there that, irrespective of how different they look, they really consider themselves fighters and they would take themselves seriously.
I
Um,
think there's a correlation though. There's a correlation with how can I say this, like there's a correlation between these dudes that are hard minded and dudes that are like kind of soft. Like you never
mm,
really hear a soft a soft dude that's a world champ. Like like they're strong mentally, bro. Like they got to be strong mentally and
mhm.
emotionally. Like you don't. There is soft spoken world champs, but I mean, bro, like they gotta like it's a lifestyle. Like I feel like like I don't know, man. I just feel like it's a mindset, bro. Like you got to keep that
Yeah.
mindset, and you can't like I just feel like misfit fighters in general, like they do things differently, and they if they're not having fun, then it's not worth it type of thing. Like that's the kind of vibe I'm getting off of those fighters. And
Mhm.
then for like the real boxers, it's like they're like, bro, I'm so miserable right now. Like that's how bad I want it. Like like I'm training every day. Like I've been eating the same shit every day. I'm miserable. I'm trying to get this shit. Like that's
Yeah.
like focused. Like I feel like the vibe I get from Misfit Fighters is like it's like yeah, I'm stopping like if I'm not getting paid the right amount. Like
Yeah.
it's kind of weird, bro.
So
Like so.
yeah, no, no. I'm telling you, you're on it, man. I'm telling you, you have to come on more often. Mr. Vince Vargas states, uh, um, Richard Steele did the Chavez versus Taylor when Steele stopped it in the 12th round when Chavez was down in the scorecards. Yeah, Chavez was definitely down in the scorecards. Taylor got up, but he could have been saved by the bell. And with seconds out, Richard Steele decided to stop the fight, and Chavez won. And Don King was happy. Yeah, I remember that. So yeah, no, without a doubt, Richard Steele, he is definitely one of the purveyors of one of the most controversial fights that has haunted Chavez and similar Taylor when those gentlemen fought about what 30 years ago or so. Um, so yeah, now I recall Richard Steele. It's been a while though. Mexican boxing number one states Barbosa beats Teofimo, and uh, you know what? Not too sure if that happens. If Barbosa beats Teofimo, but one thing is for sure, is, Drew. Arnold Barbosa from South El Monte, California, uh, he has been calling out uh, Teofimo Lopez. In fact, when he won this past weekend, I think he called Teofimo Lopez Pussy. And he's been doing that for a long time. And to tell you the truth, Teofimo Lopez has really ducked all the opportunities to fight that fighter, even when they were in the same promotion, top rank. I think it's going to be a little harder now for uh, Barbosa to get the shot at Teofimo Lopez because, well, he just. Had his very first outing with Golden Boy and Oscar de la Hoya as his new fighter that he just picked up. Golden Boy has made incredible moves in the past month or so, picking up Jose Ramirez from Fresno, Arnold Barbosa Jr. from South Del Monte, California, picked up O'Hara Davies, which, of course, his debut at Golden Boy this past weekend against Ismael Barroso was one of the biggest disappointments for his career, but one of the greatest starts of the year for boxing in general. Watching the old man Ismael Barroso knock him out with one punch, well, a couple of punches, and stopping that guy in about a minute and a half. But nonetheless, it looks like Arnold Barbosa has landed in a place that will maximize his potential in having fight. I still don't know if he will beat Teofimo Lopez, but Teofimo Lopez has not fought him, but he has also fought harder, more accomplished fighters like like uh, Sandor Martin, who retired Mikey Garcia, and he also fought Josh Taylor, who became undisputed, and nobody stripped him of that, unless, of course, you want to consider Jack El Gato Caterral as being one of the fighters that has hurt and beat Josh Taylor. But nonetheless, Teofimo Lopez, if you can allege that he ducked Arnold Barbosa, he definitely ducked him for harder fighters that have had better accomplishments than that guy. So yeah, in Mexican boxing it says warp speed is a no sabo kid. You can tell. I'm not too sure what that is, a no sabo kid is, but I believe my kids have told me that it means somebody that doesn't speak Spanish. Well, Mexican boxing number one, I would like to say that not only am I fluent in English, and in fact, I almost obtained
A
a
bachelor's
doctorate.
degree in
And well, master's, yeah, there you go, master's degree in English, but I am more than fluent in Spanish, and I've actually, just in
He will
case you
take
didn't
your
know
lady
this,
from you.
I've actually translated documents in book. I don't want to get into it, but I can assure you that I am more fluent in both English and Spanish than yourself, my friend.
If you have a wife that speaks Spanish, you are in trouble. I'm fucking with you, man. I'm saying.
Yeah. Let me show you Mexican boxing. I'm gonna put on my
Sombrero.
Chicano hat. Yeah, look, that right
Oh
there
shit.
says I'm a Chicano. That means I have Chicano power, whatever that means. That basically just means that I represent the nation that I was born in, the United States of America, with pride. But I also like to uphold the roots of my antecedents and forebears, and my father and my mother, who are from the state of Michoacan and the great nation state of Mexico. Nonetheless, I don't consider myself a Mexican because I know that the Mexicans have suffered differently than myself, and I assure you, because a lot of my cousins and a couple of my uncles have disappeared in that country. I can tell you that I'm much more safer here in the United States of America than a lot of my family over there in the old country.
Whoa.
Okay. And Mr. Vince Vargas says, I'm one too. And he flags with the Mexican and the American flag
On both
representing.
on both sides of your family?
What?
Like
Mexicans, yeah, we're all, everybody.
no no no. Like you like disappeared like in Mex?
So, well, you got to understand, I have three sides of my family. I have
Oh,
my
okay, okay.
in-laws, I have my mother, and my father.
That's right.
Um,
Yeah.
uh,
On all
not
three
my father's
sides?
side, not my
Okay.
father's side.
Mm,
But on my mother's side, they
mm,
have. Um, but I don't want to get into it, Drew.
yeah.
But just most recently, and I hope our prayers are answered. One
Whoa.
of my cousins' husbands, an entrepreneur, businessman, he's been he was kidnapped, and it's been close to 2 months that he's not been heard of. My uh, One of my uncles that I don't want to get, make too many associations. Not that anybody will know who these folks are, but nonetheless,
Mm.
an uncle of mine, uh, he was taken to become a slave for the avocado trade,
What?
and yeah, because Michoacan,
Crazy.
in the state of nation state of Mexico, we have a lot of access to one of the biggest product, and over here
Mm,
for these Gen Xers, Gen Yers, or whatever you want to call these guys, with their toast and avocados. They grow some of the best avocados in the world, and
mm.
in order to get the avocados over here, one of the best ways to maximize your profit is to take the people that are already harvesting them, kidnap them, tell them that the only way that they're gonna be released is if they work for their liberty, and then you never hear from them again. So,
Damn.
Mexican boxing number one. I hope you are proud of pointing out that I am a no sabo kid when you decide to offend myself and insinuating that I don't know how to speak English and Spanish. Because I assure you, uh, my fine sir, that I am very fluent in both and I can defend myself adequately. And like Mr. Vince Vargas said, you fly the Mexican and especially the American flag. Mr. Adam Hurley asked the question of Mexican boxing number one, of which Mexican boxing was not courteous enough of answering him. Mr. Adam Hurley states, Mexican boxing. I want to see Barbosa get a big fight in next. Mexican boxing doesn't say nothing. Mr. Adam Hurley goes on and states he's due for it. Do you guys think guys are overlooking Barbosa as not a big enough fight? And look, Mr. Hurley, Barbosa is a talented fighter. Just a few years ago, he retired El Cholo Saucedo from Southern California, Tijuana. And one of the fights of the year, where both of those guys went to war, and at the end of the day, Barbosa came out the winner when Saucedo, after that fight, retired because of, guess what? A brain bleed, an aneurysm. Arnold Barbosa Jr. made Saucedo quit the sport of boxing because the doctor said if he should ever take punches like that to his head and his face, he would die.
Yeah. Yeah, I know
Barbosa
Barboza.
is a
Bar-
tough man.
Barbosa's what it is. I think it's he is high risk, low reward. That's what I heard. I think he's a formidable opponent. For like a lot of dudes in the 140 division. I was gonna say for anybody, but not Devin. I think Devin is like tailor made for that dude to like just wipe him out. Uh, but Arnold Barboza is a threat to anybody that can't box like Devin. Honestly, um, I think Barboza. Um, I don't think he can hang with the Matias. That his style is not good for Matias actually. Um, I could see him beating Tio. You know, I could see him beating a Tio just because Tio's like undisciplined sometimes. I mean, yeah, he's up and down, but I want to see him versus Tio. I like I'm only going off of mindsets, you know, and usually like you can tell like dudes are like a threat. Like you could tell like when Tio was, you know, going up against God, what's his name? Sandor Martin. He wasn't worried at all. At all. I think the vibe I get from him and Tio, I think Tio knows that he's a threat. Um, yeah, that's the main one that I want. I think Barboza. I don't know if he can beat the other top dogs. Not even fucking Rigas. I think Rigas is really stationary, but I think he has enough power to keep him honest. I'm just trying to name 140 pounders, honestly. Arnold Barboza just beats the hell out of Rolly. Um, and at this point, we gotta give some respect to Basuro or Barroso. Basuro, right? We gotta give some respect to that dude. He got power.
Ismael Barroso.
Barroso, yeah, you know, he's a threat too. Um,
No, he's definitely a threat, and I think a lot of people are overlooking him. Like, for example,
I'm overlooking him too.
bro, Ismael Barroso. Here's the thing:
Yeah,
you don't think he would beat Ryan Garcia? I mean, come on
yeah,
now.
he can. He can beat anybody,
Yeah, he
bro.
could,
He can beat anybody. And
bro.
I think when it
Look.
comes down, I think when it comes down to 140, bro, it's I think the toughest part about hitting 140 is keeping your power at 140.
Uh huh.
Also, you know, I think at a certain extent, I think Devin still has to drop some weight. Um, and I just think it's just an awkward weight, right? That you have to hit unless you're like the perfect stature. I feel like all dudes kind of like uh change it up when they're at 140 because there's different ways you can carry your weight, you know, and there's different styles you can fight in that weight class, but there's so many styles to fight in that weight class. And you could tell like dudes dudes at 140 got welterweight power, and they got, you know, and they got some actually got middleweight power.
Yeah.
I think Matthias got this middleweight power, and not because he's
Wow.
hella strong, but I think it's because of how he throws it. He throws it with bad intentions. You know,
Yeah.
doesn't mean I'm not saying that he's that strong, but it's the way he fights. It's his mentality when he fights. It's
Yeah.
bad and it's good at the same time.
That's
Like,
crazy.
you
You
know,
just you just answered two of our listeners. Mexican boxing. You agreed with him with saying Barbosa may actually beat Teofimo, and you also went and gave Mr. Adam Hurley a good idea that a fight between Teo and Barbosa would be a great fight. And you answered this other question, which is, do you guys think, or do you think guys are overlooking Barbosa as not a big enough fight? Yeah, absolutely. Like you stated,
yeah,
it's a high risk, low reward type of fight. Um, and I think you're right. But with the move of having been picked up and contracted by Golden Boy with Jose Ramirez, and of course, if Oscar De La Hoya is smart enough to pick up Ismael Barroso, And even though Harold Davis didn't work out for his outing, nonetheless, that's a round robin that we have to get into. And here's the thing, Drew. This weekend we had all of the guys. We had Roddy Romero, which I know he's not going to be doing business with any of the other fighters except for Ryan Garcia. Um, uh, but nonetheless, Teofimo Lopez was there also. Teofimo Lopez and Oscar De La Hoya and Bernard Hopkins have a very good relationship. I know that they're looking to work with each other. And depending on when the contract for Teofimo Lopez is up, I believe he has another fight in that contract. Likely after that, they may actually do that round robin, which would mean Golden Boy would have access to Ismael Barroso, O'Hara Davies, Arnold Barbosa, Jose Ramirez, and Teofimo Lopez, and Ryan Garcia. Six. Well, Brian Garcia, I don't even know if he's at 140. I know that apparently he's negotiating a fight with Roddy Romero at 140 for that belt, but we know that last fight he had it at middle at welterweight at 147 because he came in weighing at 140 143.7. But nonetheless, that would be an incredible round robin. Uh, you know, fight between all of them. That would just be incredible. I think Drew, he just sent me a message saying that he's been kicked out, probably because his phone died, or maybe the the live just went into the 3 minute, and I guess he dropped somewhere there. But yeah, Drew, if you could hear us, it was a great, time talking to you, catching up to you. Happy New Year, Mr. Vince Vargas. Sends a big fist in your way, big boxing glove, and states, "Let's go." Um, Mr. Vince Vargas, Spanish is my second language. Yeah, Mr. Vargas, yeah, and practice it. Spanish is a beautiful language. It is a romance language, and it's crucial in our nation to be a bilingual, and if you can be a trilingual or quadrilingual, in order to open up all these doors of not only business but of amiable relations with our neighbors. We have people all over the world coming into our country that are bringing their cultural practices and their idioms and languages, and it's only good for us to communicate adequately and respectfully with others if we want to have a good societal relations. So yeah, keep it up as a second language. Spanish is wonderful. Um, Mr. Adam Hurley states, "Yep, that would actually be a good fight, Teofimo versus Barbosa." But yeah, that's the thing, though, Mr. Hurley. Teo has taken other fighters on instead of Barbosa, even though Barbosa's called him out for a long time, and he's actually called them curse words. So hopefully, in one of those days, one of these moments, Teofimo will decide to fight Barbosa, and I do believe Barbosa is a very skilled, capable operator. I just think very highly of Teofimo Lopez. And I think one of the things that has barred Barbosa from becoming a more a notable name is the fact that he wasn't getting the kind of respect or the kind of action and enough outings to fight for top rank under Bob Arum, because they had just so many fighters at 140. They probably couldn't even figure what to do. And I think the other thing was Mr. Meridian, who was the manager for both Jose Luis Ramirez and Arnold Barbosa. He didn't know what direction he wanted to take him, because one of the fights that Top Rank wanted to have was Arnold Barbosa versus Jose Ramirez. But because they're both managed by the same manager, Rick Meridian, Meridian didn't want to allow them to fight. So I could understand conflict of interest or double dipping or whatever, but Barbosa is a fighter that just has had these opportunities stunted and hindered because of his management, and because Bob Arum just had so many fighters at 135, 140 that he really wanted to see what he could maximize. And maybe Arnold Barbosa just was the odd man out. Mr. Vince Vargas states Lopez and his backflips. Yeah. And his Fortnite dances, Mr. Vargas. The homie Ricky states Barbosa should fight Jose Ramirez after Ramirez gets his tune up. I was not impressed with Barbosa, and to tell you down the truth, neither was I, homie Ricky. But again, I chalk it up to an activity And I'm not saying jitters. I'm not saying jitters, but inactivity. Uh, and of course, he needed to perform. And at the end of the day, he did stop his opponent in a 9 round fight out of 12. So we can't be too critical of it. Uh, he goes on to state he lacks explosive power or speed, and I agree with you on that. Explosive power, yeah, I don't think he has that. As far as speed, I think he's middle of the road, but he's a capable enough fighter, and obviously uh, hurtful enough to cause brain bleeds and end careers, uh, homie Ricky. So we can't be too critical. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe the time has come where I must bid you adieu and state it's been fun. This has been a live that I've been trying to get the homie Ricky to kick off since the beginning of the year because I was really excited, guys, about last year. And we just needed to wait on a couple of news to develop. Unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, you know me, I am a chatterbox. I can talk about a topic for a long time. I tried to stay on track, and I believe for the most part I did, but I did not want to make this broadcast tonight solely on the controversy of Tony Weeks. Even though that took up the majority of the show, I did want to address a lot of other things. I wanted to address what it all means for Tony Weeks to be inept, corruptible, and no longer competent. I also wanted to address in more detail the controversy of what transsexual boxing means to the sport of boxing. Luckily, Drew came in to give some opinions that I believe are more than deserving of our attention and consideration, and I believe he is correct overall. Like Mr. Vince Vargas states, it will likely lead to protest and it'll expose a lot of fighters to harm, therefore indicating the fallacies and the untenable, in my case, untenable situation that putting men to fight women under any kind of uh, conditions would mean to the sport. Untenable situations, I believe. Nonetheless, I will give them an opportunity. But there was so much more that I could have delved into, ladies and gentlemen, because I was researching quite deeply. I still have all of my pages open to sort to for substantiation and evidence. Nonetheless, we did take up a lot of the time. I know homie Rick is not going to allow me to talk about this topic anymore because he thinks we've hashed it out. I did want to just say one thing, and this is the reason why I disagree with any kind of circumstances which would allow a natural born man that has even gone through the rigors of gender affirming surgery, why they because although they are the IOC and USA Boxing is requiring that they would have those surgical procedures to undergo for these fighters in order to fight fighters of the opposite sex, they are still allowing hormonal balances of testosterone at 0.5%, which is baseline for a man. Hear what I say. USA Boxing and the International Olympic Committee are still allowing testosterone levels in men turned women to be in the range of natural testosterone levels for men. That means that irrespective of how many hormones and what surgeries take place, they are still allowing testosterone levels in these fighters to still be at the range of men that have not transitioned, which means that they will still have the advantage over women. I don't find that fair. If that ever comes up to be the case, ladies and gentlemen, I will answer Mr. Vince Vargas in this question on whether or not the world of boxing will boycott boxing. And I will answer that, Mr. Vargas, by saying you don't have to worry and wonder. I assure you, I will boycott that event because a man turned women, even if he goes through surgery and even if he continues to take hormones like estrogen and endometriol to make themselves more feminine, as long as they are allowed testosterone levels of a man, it is a disadvantage to women, and I will not condone nor support that side of boxing. Transgender and transsexual boxing fight similar, yes, but not men turned women fighting biological men or vice versa. I draw the line right there. I love these fighters. I respect them all. And I encourage any fighters that are thinking of fighting under these circumstances to send us a message, ask for an invitation. I'm not too sure if the homie Ricky would consent to that. But we just want to let you know what our opinions are. At least in my case, I can speak for myself, and I think I can represent Drew for the most part. Uh, we believe we will give you a shot if you fight fighters in like physical conditions and situations. And I think we have one of our listeners in agreement, who is Adam Hurley, and he states it should be illegal, in my opinion, for anyone to allow a natural born male to fight a natural born female in boxing. I agree. Mr. Vince Vargas agrees, and he states it breaks tradition. That's important. This sport is about tradition. This sport is what it is because we've kept it up in the same circumstances, which basically means a sport of violence and courage and moxie and grit, irrespective of whether you are a male or female. It's a tradition that you fight fair and square. That's why there's weight classes, weight stipulations, firm rules to abide by. And I think some of the proposals to change the sport from its more traditional semblance are detrimental and will expose a lot of the shortcomings of the belief of a lot of these people that want to change the sport of boxing and change traditions in general because they are discontent or they've been mistreated by society or looked down upon. I think there has to be a balance where we can hold on to tradition without compromising the value of how we uphold these traditions and these roots for so long. The reason these have been traditions and have had these firm roots planted is because they are fair and well accepted by the majority of us. Traditions have importance, and Mr. Vargas states that. Mr. Adam Hurley says a woman can get seriously injured that way. I agree, Mr. Hurley. Mr. Vince Vargas says, let's see a sparring session first. Well, we did, Mr. Vargas. Some kind of a Russian fighter had a sparring session with Clarissa Shields and he knocked her out with a left hook. And Mr. Vince Vargas states, plus trunks would be higher on women and different for those who want to change. And that is true. There's just so many things that would change as a result for the accommodation of a negligible amount of fighters, which the WBC and the WBA and the IOC and the USA Boxing already agree that there wouldn't be much demand for these types of fighters because there wouldn't be that many fighters fighting under these strict criteria and circumstances in the first place. They are just trying to make a token gesture of inclusivity, and I understand why. We should not discriminate. We should accept if these fighters want to go in there, balls to the wall, kill themselves and others slowly, we welcome that. But let's make it fair, please. The homie Ricky, thank you very much for allowing me to hold up the show tonight. Mr. Vince Vargas, brother, you my son says happy new year. He's about to pop a popper for one last time before we wrap up the show, but happy new year to you and your family, Mr. Vargas. I hope you and everybody around you is full of love and full of happiness. Mr. Adam Hurley, happy new year to you, sir. I really, really like seeing you and Mr. Vargas always hop over here. You guys are very astute, very respectful, great listeners. I can't. I mean, maybe the words "I love you guys" come out too easily, but I really do love you guys. I love the fact that we even have listeners. How can I not? Drew 123, thank you for hopping on. The Mexican G, sir, please hop on and stay longer next time. We'd like to have you chat with us. You are you're a good listener, and you are also very smart, and you always have something controvertible. Well, for the most part, you've been very agreeable with us, but I know you have been controvertible before. We don't disagree with that. Bring it on. Um, and of course, the the Mr. No Sabo, Mexican boxing #1. Welcome aboard, sir. Hopefully, one day I'll convince you that I speak both English and Spanish fluently, and that I don't know exactly what a no sabo is, but I think you are trying to offend me, and I don't know why that would be the case. Good night, Mr. Vargas. Good night, fellas. Happy New Year to you and yours, Ricky, Adam Hurley, Mr. Adam Hurley. Thank you, Warp Speed, and thank you, Mr. Vince. Adios, amigos. Los estimo mucho. My son is about to pop the last popper of the year. I'm about to start showing my ugly mug again because I want you guys to see the popper land. Okay, Angie, take it away. Come on. It's just pull it straight. Don't point it at my face. Uh, there you go. Woohoo! Happy New Year, everybody.